Hello, wrestling friends. I'm Matt Kuhn, which means you're listening to FTR with Dax Harwood. Dax Harwood, how you doing sitting there in your pink Hitman sweatshirt with your baller background with your 7 title belts? Looks like life's going pretty good.
Everything's good, man. Today is a rest day, so I'm hanging out with the family outside of these couple of hours with you, and it's been a great day of reflection for me. I can't wait for Tequila time. I can't wait for Full Gear 2020 time, and I might get a little loose lips with this Codigo here.
I can't wait for the Tequila time. Of course, we want to thank everybody for listening, and we want to say that today we're talking about something we've been asked to talk about forever. Full Gear 2020, Young Bucks versus FTR. We're going to ask all the questions. We're going to answer all the questions. It's going to be a fun show. Are you looking forward to it, or are you a little stressed out by it?
I'm not stressed out by it, but I am looking forward to it, and I'm just hoping I'm not going to get myself in any kind of trouble with anybody. I just plan to tell the truth today, and that's all I can deliver is the truth. And sometimes you can't handle the truth. That's my best Jack.
Do you like that movie?
Honestly, I've never watched it. Only heard that line before. I've heard it's incredible, though.
It's incredible. It's an incredible movie. And there's a few good men we're going to be talking about today. It's a transition. All of the wrestlers for Full Gear. We're going to talk about the whole lineup of Full Gear, and we're going to talk about the entire backstory of the first match, FTR versus Bucks. But before we do, I have a question for you, and I'm not sure I can handle the truth. A lot of talk about FTR. You made the announcement a few weeks ago. You've been at home for a while. Yep. How's it going? You're like this is weird, right? You're just chilling, right? Today marks month number 1, first month off, doing nothing, having fun, enjoying my family time. Cash and I have been running the roads really hard for 10 straight years with each other. But before that, we were even doing that on the independent circuit too. And this is the first time that I'm able to sit at home and spend time at home. This is the first time I'm able to be with my family and with my wife. I've made it known before that, before I went to WWE, I was working 3 jobs and going to college and wrestling. So my wife never got an opportunity to see me. We never got to spend time together like we are now. We're actually spending quality time together. And I'm trying to make up for lost time with both her and my daughter. And it's been a lot of fun. I'm sure it has. It's probably an adjustment too, but it's been an adjustment for all of us.
Yeah, an adjustment for them. My dumb ass is staying home, and they're probably annoyed with me.
Why is he still here? Why?
Yeah. But you got to think, dude, it is crazy because those 2 girls have, for 8 years, they've had their, obviously it's changed with Finley's age, but they've had their regimented day, and the day is structured around how Maria feels like it should be structured. And now I'm coming in and messing up the whole algorithm. So I'm the heel here at the house.
It's like you got back from the Civil War or something. You've been away for 8 years, and now you're back and
having flashbacks. Wake up in a cold sweat.
We're gonna talk about
backstage politics.
Those flashbacks a little bit later. But the question I have is, I know you're a wrestling freak. You love wrestling. You're probably thinking about 2023. You're probably looking forward to getting back in the ring. Let's do this. This is a fun idea. Who are your dream opponents? Let's say 5. Do you have 5 dream opponents for either FTR as a tag team, or you as a single, or combined, just off the top of your head?
Well, dude, honestly, I haven't put much thought into anything like that as far as the wrestling aspect goes for this year, because all of my thoughts on wrestling, I've tried not to think about wrestling as much because I've wanted to be home and be present in the moment with my family, because I feel like I haven't given them that for the last few years. But, obviously the biggest decision of our career is in April. And, I may be overstating it, but not to me. It's not to me. It really is, because whatever we do in April, I feel will probably be the last thing we ever do in wrestling, period. At least on a national level in the ring, for sure. It'll be the last thing that we ever do in wrestling. So I've got to take a lot of things, into consideration as far as what we're going to do, where we're going to go. And I have an idea with my heart, what I want to do. I have an idea with my brain. And usually I say lead with your heart, but sometimes, especially in this business, man, you lead with your heart and you get your heart broken sometimes. So I have to figure out what I want to do and how I can take care of my family. Also, I have to make sure that my decision correlates with Cash's decision. But the good thing is, and we've talked about how great of a guy Cash is, how incredible of a person he is. His exact words to me, he told me what he felt we should do and what his ideas were and what his plans for the future could be. But he said, ultimately, dude, you have the family, we have to make sure that your family is happy. He said, I don't have a family. I don't have anyone I have to take care of. You do. And so whatever you decide or whatever you want, we can make happen. So that's I appreciate him saying that. And I love him so much for saying that, dude. And it gives it puts a lot of weight on my shoulders, but ultimately the decision we make has to be a decision that he's 100% on board with too. So I got a lot of things coming up, and as far as like what we're going to do and things like that. But I guess it is kind of fun now to think, because I haven't done it this year at all. But
because really, if you truly haven't made a decision, this top 5 could be people that you might actually, and it could be anybody in the entire world, that you want to wrestle,
Okay. So 5 to pick a top 5. I don't know if I have time to, and it could change, dude. It could change tomorrow. It might change by the end of this episode. I don't know. But I don't want to put them in order because that would take too long. But throwing out 5 names right now that I would love to have a match with, tag team and singles. I would say first, let's start with the singles. And I would say probably Gunther, maybe number 1.
Ooh, that's
yep. I've watched a lot of his stuff this year, and I missed out on a lot of the independent stuff he did overseas a while back because I was just traveling so much. But I've watched a lot of his stuff, and I think he and I could do some good business, dude. I think that we both know who we are, and I don't think we're going to step outside that realm of who Gunther is and who Dax is. And, he's a hard hitter, and I, enjoy hitting hard as well. So that would be one of them. I think a second one would be a tag team match. And this one, I hope they don't mind me saying this, but this is more possible than a lot of people might think. But me and Cash, FTR against Edge and Christian. That's a tag team match I would absolutely love to have.
Whoa.
Those two guys are two of the best storytellers in the ring. And I don't think that's an overstatement or overrating them. I think a lot of people think that as well. They're incredible storytellers. And I think that they led a generation. They were one of the leaders of a generation of tag teams. And I would like to think, humbly speaking, I would like to think we're one of the leaders of a generation of tag teams. So that would be number 2, Edge and Christian.
2 down, 3 to go.
Yep. So let's go overseas. And I would say Ishii would be one of my dream opponents. I think that.
Wow.
Yeah, we're both miserable, bald bastards. And I think we have the same, I don't want to say the same ideology on wrestling because we don't. Doesn't mean one's right or wrong. So let's skip the headlines there. I think we have at the core, we are similar. And then when we expound and go outside of the box, we're different. And I think that would make for a great stylistic wrestling match. And I would love to work with Shingo. Again, the same kind of dynamic as Ishii. Incredible seller, just like Ishii. I think he's a great seller. I think Shingo's a great seller. When it's time to when it's time to again explode and bring the match up to a feverish pace. He knows when to do that. He also knows when to bring it down, and he knows the importance again of selling. And he's a hard hitter, and his strikes are crisp. His punches, his kicks, his lariats, everything's there, dude. And that to me is a sign of a great wrestler. When you're a great seller and you don't skip over the basics, you know what I mean? And you don't forget the small details just to go to the big details.
You got one more.
Drawing a blank here. Let's see.
Is there another tag team?
There is another tag team. Yes, there we go. I've told you about this one before, and it may not. I think it is. It could be. And this is, again, humbly speaking, I think it could be a dream match. We've seen the match before. We've had 2 matches with them on television before. I think it's just 2 matches, one at a pay-per-view and one on Raw. And I love the Raw match. And I'll try to get that date to you for the Raw match so people can go back and watch it. It was only about 9 minutes, so it's not a classic or anything, but I did love the match. We made the people believe in us, which was very hard to do at the time. But I think right now, us versus the Usos could be the ultimate tag team match because the 2 teams have grown so much, you know, and I think we've hit our peak as a team, as characters, as athletes. I think our promo work has hit a peak. I think, again, our character work, our gimmicks have hit a peak. I think our athleticism, and we understand the psychology, that would be the match. If you could take these guys who are these badass Samoans, right? These badass Samoans who will fight anybody in a second.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And you take these other guys, who on the surface are polar opposites from these guys, but 2 badasses from the South who will fight you in a second, and you put that in there for that's a combustible element, man. And I think that with the Usos, with where both of us are in our careers right now, could be maybe one of the greatest tag team matches, at least on the thought, in the thought, on the surface of it, it could be. I think it could be a generational tag team match. So that's it. Those are my 5 dream matches, and 2023. Those are my 2023 dream matches. There we go.
Well, with how your 2022 went, man, you could make it all happen. Like, I mean, if you looked back at 2021 and said, "Hey, you're gonna face CM Punk and Will Ospreay and Cash and all these different people," there's no telling what can happen in the future.
And dude, the crazy thing is about that is our 2022, I don't think that we even scratched the surface of what we could have done or what we could have been. I believe that there were different factors that happened, but our momentum probably didn't get taken advantage of the way it could have been. So I think there's a lot of meat left on the FTR bone, you know, and I think that going into 2023, it should be, and this again goes back to the decision we're going to have to make, again, from my heart and from my brain. I've got to think the right way, but I've got to make sure this 2023 eclipses 2022, you know, and we have the opportunity to pick and choose what we want to do, where we want to go. And with that, I got to think of the money. I've got to think of the creative. I've got to think of time at home. I've got to think of what my best friend wants to do. So there's a lot of things that I got to put into this. We both have to put into this decision. But 2023, we have got to make sure it eclipses at least rivals 2022, because eclipsing it's going to be very, very, very hard. But we could rival. I think if we are given the opportunity, we could rival 2022, and that's why 2023 is so important. And those are my dream matches for 2023.
Of course, we are on a roll. We've had 6 great episodes. This is our 7th. And today we're talking about something that everybody's wanted to talk about. And we are prepared to talk about Full Gear Bucks versus FTR1. But first, the tequila of the week. Dax Harwood, do you have a tequila of the week?
Brother, come on. It's a day of the week. Of course I do.
But it's a rhetorical question. We all know.
Before we get into that, though, and trust me, I can't wait for that. But before we get into that, dude, I want to say that we need to put you over a little bit, man. The first 6 episodes, is that right? 6 episodes?
Yeah, this is our 7th now.
7th episode. Yeah, the first 6 episodes, dude, have done so well. It again, as always, it blows my mind. But dude, I wish the people understood how much you come prepared. And how easy you make it for me. And that's what makes this conversation engaging. And that's what makes this podcast so successful, is the studying that you do. And I think we're a team and we work very hard together. But dude, you could do this without me, with another wrestler sitting right here. I couldn't do this without you. So thank you for that. Thank you for all the fans that listen. And we are both so excited and so happy with how successful this has been. I want to keep it going. So yeah, I wanted to give that shout out to you.
Well, I appreciate that. You're certainly welcome. And, it's been a great ride, and I think it's just going to continue. We're a great team, and it's a labor of love because it's so fun, and we're going to have some fun today. But I think, with all those nice things being said, I think we need a tequila before we start talking about this subject today.
Absolutely. So today is a rare celebrity tequila that I got.
Oh.
It is George Strait's Código 1530. This is the Blanco, and from Jalisco, Mexico, which is where they usually are, 100% agave azul. The George Strait tequila is unlike most other celebrity tequilas, where he puts he puts the quality first, over quantity and things like that. Just really quick, the agave is Tequilana Weber. There we go. Not the blue Weber that we're usually used to. And like I said, Jalisco, Mexico. It is roller milled, the extraction. So it's rolled through deep well water, stainless steel tanks, 2 times distilled, double distilled, stainless steel pots. So it's one that's got even the tequila snobs online put this over. So I'm really excited to try the Blanco. I had my wife try it the other night and she loved it. And so now I'm going to try it here. So, and George, I know you don't need any sponsorship, brother, and you got enough money, but if you ever want a sponsor and send some our way, Amarillo by morning, my friend.
We will have a tequila sponsor one day. The sound of the and then it'll just be Dax's tequila corner, once we get a sponsor, because
that would be okay with me
every time. So until we get one that wants to sponsor us, we're doing the tequila of the week, which is fine by Dax. Dax with a moderate pour. Let's get a close up of that. Show that glass again, if you don't mind. And that is a moderate pour for sure.
A moderate pour.
And let us know what you think. Dax Harwood is trying the George Strait tequila.
Okay, first let's get a little some of the first thing, as far as the aroma goes, the first thing that I smell is the agave. And sometimes some of the tequilas, like, one of our favorites, the Clase Azul, I don't mind it nearly as much as some of the snobs. They do have a few additives in it for taste. And so I think sometimes when you first thing you smell for the Clase Azul, for example, is maybe the vanilla-y flavor or the vanilla-y aroma. This one, immediately, the first thing is the agave smell. And then black pepper, which I love on my tequila. I love that. It hits afterwards. And so now we'll do the taste. Yep, George, you did it right, brother. You did it right. So I think this is not an introductory tequila for someone because it does have such an agave bite, but I absolutely love it. It is so good, dude. Every detection of the exact same aromas that I smelled, I taste. The agave, very first thing, it followed up by the black pepper. Man, very earthy too. Very earthy flavor, in a good way, not a bad way. Very, very tequila. You want it to be an earthy flavor, a real true tequila. I don't really have any. There's no real sweetness to it. It is citrus, especially towards the back end. Man, this could be trouble, dude. That's very good. I would give this Blanco, and I'm not a huge. Okay, Blanco typically is not my favorite. I love Reposados. I would give this one an 8.7 out of 10, dude. This is very
a high
good.
score.
Very
Although
good.
you've yet to try tequila and go, this is trash. Like that's not happened yet. But
Right, yes.
they just seem to get better and better.
To be fair, that's because I don't like to spend my money on the bad tequila, which I think you know. Some of my favorites, and that I have right behind my bar right now, if I can ever get this fucking webcam set up the way I want it to, I'll take everybody on a
one day.
I'll take everybody on a tour. I think I could switch over to it right now. But behind my bar right now, I have Voland's Tequila Reposado. That's so incredible. Añejo Tequila Siete Lagas, so good. Wild Common, maybe my favorite. If anybody can find that one, siptequila.com. Wild Common Reposado is incredible. Probably it has overtaken my number one favorite tequila is the Wild Common Reposado. Obviously, I've got the Clases, the Reposados. I have a Clase Joven too, which is a mixture of the Reposado and an Añejo. Dude, so yes, my vice is good quality tequila, and so I haven't really tried one. Should we get a shitty tequila and try it?
I think we should get a shitty tequila and try it.
Okay.
Or just a normal tequila. I mean,
let's plan that for next week's show.
Let's do that.
One that we can find at the just a typical liquor store, very cheap, and try it out and see. Who knows? It could be good.
So as we get started, I'm going to ask you to maybe push your mic back an inch or sit back from the mic just a tad so we don't distort a little bit. We are going to start. That sounds like great tequila, but we are going to start talking about the subject at hand, which is Full Gear. But first, this podcast is brought to you by, of course, Blue Chew, because the nights are getting longer, but the breeze isn't the only thing that's getting stiff. That's right. This episode is sponsored by Blue Chew. Guys, we all know that confidence can take you far in life. That's especially true in the bedroom, especially when it's time to step up to the plate. That's where Blue Chew comes in. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable tablets and at a fraction of the cost. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. The process is simple. Sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part is it's all done online, so no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped directly to your door in a discreet package. Dax Harwood, you are a enthusiastic endorsee of said Blue Chew. People love our Blue Chew commercials, but that's because, like everything else, you say it from the heart.
Dude, so I love tequila. Everyone knows I love tequila. But more than tequila, you know what I love? Fucking sex, dude. Sex. I love that way more than tequila. I could get rid of tequila tomorrow and be okay, man. Okay, man. Fellas, coming up is Valentine's Day, we got Valentine's Day coming up, and I know we want to get flowers and chocolates and cards and take them out to dinner and stuff like that. All the typical stuff that they probably don't want or don't need. They just want a good time, and I think the best way to give them a good time is Blue Chew.
Hey, that is an excellent way to have a good time is Blue Chew, because if you could benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, chew it and do it. Have better sex. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code DAX at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's bluechew.com, promo code DAX to receive your first month free. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast. Well, we put this off for 7 episodes. We knew people would want to talk about it, and we are going to talk about Full Gear and everything that led up to the Bucks versus FTR. Are you ready, Dax Harwood?
I think I'm ready, yes.
So, All Out took place September 4th, 2020, and FTR got to win the old AEW tag team titles from Hangman Page and Kenny Omega. And from that point on, you're the champs. It's happened. FTR's come in. FTR's got the championships. What was the plan as you saw it, as you heard at that moment? You win the titles. You know what's coming up next. You know the Bucks are coming up next. What do you know? What do you think's going to happen?
So real quick, first of all, the match with Hangman and Omega from that pay-per-view was probably the most difficult match Cash and I've ever had. We went 35 minutes, I believe, something between 30 and 35 minutes. And as you know, at that time we were performing at Daly's place. And that's an outside amphitheater, right? And we're in the middle of Florida, and it is hot as hell and humid as hell. And I think the humidity that day was, I'm not kidding, I think it was about 96 or 97%, which is so thick, it makes it hard to breathe. And we had to, we were scheduled to go half an hour, maybe a little bit more than half an hour. And that was physically the hardest match I've ever had. I'm not kidding when I say that Cash went blind in the match. Towards the end of the match, you get oxygen deprivation, and like you get these spots in your eyes, and he could not see. He couldn't see anything. We got our belts after the match, went to the back, and we were getting pulled in this direction and that direction for social media, and they needed pictures with us for the belts. And there was an interview person that wanted some words with us, and Cash just, after a while, he kind of just freaked out, and he said, "I can't see, give me a second." So even to the point we were in the back, he was still like having the effects of that. That was physically the hardest match I've ever had in my entire life because of the weather conditions and the toll that it took on my internal body. And it took me 4 days to get over that match. It was so rough. But you said we knew that the Bucks were next. We had no idea that's what was next. No idea. We didn't know that was next. What we wanted, I got this question a lot on Twitter using the hashtag FTR with Dax. The question was, would you have rather waited, or was the plan to wait for fans to come back? And yes, that was the plan. The plan was to wait until fans came back to give them this match, because the fans are the reasons this match had any sort of build, had any sort of promise for a spectacular classic tag team match, because this is the match that they had asked for years. And up at that point, maybe 4 years, they had asked for this match. And so we felt an obligation to give it to a live audience. But, we were in the pandemic era then. 2020 was a weird time. Watching it back today, I told my wife, I said, I can't believe that 2020 was a real time. I can't believe that really happened. But, we had no idea when the COVID ban was going to be lifted, when fans could be back in the arena, when we could perform in an arena, So, we had no idea going after we won the belts. I had no clue that the Bucks were getting the belts next.
The Dynamite right after All Out, which is on the 9th of September. You guys come out. Cash says that AEW is filled with great tag teams from top to bottom. SCU comes out, the Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian version, and you guys said it was one of your dreams to wrestle them because you grew up watching them, which is a great line.
Yeah, I remember that segment. That's the one where I think we had a cake in the ring or something.
There was cake involved. Yes. You guys threw some papers at Luchasaurus. He grabbed you both for choke slams, and then you jumped out of the ring. Then Jungle Boy took your cooler and doused you guys with ice water.
Right.
Because that was the kind of gimmick, was that you guys are like these beer drinkers, right?
Right. It was, just an extension of who we were. Obviously, we love our tequila. We always have. But you can't bring out bottles and bottles of tequila and chug on them. So, that was the gimmick, and that was the setup for the match with those guys. It was a way to set some heat because we really hadn't had any babyface teams, because you think about it before then, all the way up until the match with Omega and Hangman, we were pretty much quasi baby faces. We had come in to make the save for the Young Bucks on our debut. We had wrestled Butcher and Blade. We had wrestled, at the time they were the heels. We had wrestled the Lucha Bros. The Butcher and Blade and Lucha Bros stole our truck. So we had been working predominantly as baby faces up until that point. So we needed to hotshot somebody for the babyface tag team role there to work with us. And that was a way to get heat, between the two teams, us and Jurassic Express, pretty quickly. But yeah, no idea we were going to work with the Young Bucks at this point.
And the following week, Dynamite, the 16th of September, FTR beats Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus in 12 minutes in a 3 3/4 match, according to David Meltzer. Before the match started, the Young Bucks came out and gave Mike Posey a double super kick. We're going to talk about that in a little second. Then Matt Jackson took a wad of bills, basically the fine money, threw it at Tony Khan. FTR made fun of the Young Bucks, picking on the biggest guy in the building when they attacked Posey. So this is the first tease for you guys doing kind of an eventual program together. What do you remember about that? And at this time, are you thinking, okay, it's Bucks time?
Yeah, I think about this time we knew Tony wanted it. None of the four wanted to do it right now. But Tony said he really needed it for the pay-per-view. He needed it for a selling point for the pay-per-view. And, we had begged and begged and begged, please, let's just try to wait it out and see when we can get fans back in, because we felt that we owed it to the fans to give them this match live. And I understand Tony's point. He wanted his perennial babyface tag team to have the belts. Also, I'm not 100% sure that Tony was sold on us yet. I could be wrong, but I think that him also saying that he needed it for the pay-per-view as a selling point, I don't think that is just lip service. I really think that he thought that, and I could see that, because the main event of that show, which we'll talk about later, was Moxley and Eddie Kingston, and Eddie had just been introduced into the company. He had just been introduced to national television. He'd been this indie standout forever. I mean, I was a huge fan of his. I actually would text him before he even came to AEW and tell him how much of a fan I was of his work and his promos and his believability. And I said, dude, I really think I'm going to see you here soon. And, I hope he doesn't mind me telling this. And I don't think he will. But I'd never met Eddie before this, but I believed so much in his passion, and I believe so much in his ability and him as a person. I sent him a message, and this is all on Twitter, and I sent him a message and said, look, if you ever need anything, dude, please let me be the first person you contact, because I will help you out. However, obviously I meant monetarily, but I told him however he needed it. And he said, I appreciate that, but I think I'll be okay. He is too proud of a human being, too proud of a man to ever accept anything like that. So I'll respect that from him. But I wanted him to know that I believed in him so much that I would do whatever I could to get him here, because he deserved it. But anyway, in saying that, he was still brand new to a national television audience,
sure.
And he was in the main event with John Moxley, who's obviously a huge superstar. So hearing, and then we had Jericho as well working with MJF. Jericho, Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer, of course, first ballot Hall of Famer. Max, someone who's still brand new to a national audience. So I could see why he felt that he needed FTR versus Young Bucks in that position. And when he said he needed it, it's his company. And obviously I'm going to do whatever the boss says.
let's talk about that a little bit. You know, of course, with Eddie Kingston, it was just a couple months before, July 4th, 2020. Matthew and I went to the backyard wrestling GCW thing. We drove a few miles to a like a field where they had wrestling lit up by car lights, and Eddie Kingston was in the ring. There was probably 50 people there, and that's where Eddie Kingston gave the promo about Cody Rhodes.
Okay,
and that's where he got noticed and got on. And just 3 or 4 months later, he's headlining this pay-per-view.
Right. Yes.
Just believe in your dreams, folks. Like that's an amazing thing, because we're talking about, it was a death match. There's glass everywhere and there's chains around the ring. Eddie Kingston promoted his way onto TV, and that's an amazing thing.
Yeah, and that shows you that life can change on a dime. You know, he went from someone who was well known and well respected in independent wrestling, but obviously independent wrestling is not the most lucrative job in the world, to landing a spot. And I'll talk about this. I had this in my notes, but I remember him after this main event being so emotional and so proud of himself for being in the main event of a pay-per-view. And he deserved it. He deserved to be proud because he had worked to get there. So yes, that shows how quick life can change as long as you believe in yourself and you work your ass off, dude.
My man sold his boots, bro. Like, he sold his boots. Mm-hmm. Then he freaking, it's crazy. But let's talk about that super kick that they gave Posey. Like, the idea is the best tag teams in the world.
Right.
The Young Bucks, best tag team in the world. The Revival, now FTR, best tag team in the world. You just said they were baby faces. Mm-hmm. Tony Khan's babyface tag team. But they seem to be kind of turning heel. Mm-hmm. It's a whole different story is developing. Did you feel that story was needed? Like, it was a kind of a strange shift for the Bucks. Like, the match was already there. The story was already there for a lot of us. Why do you think they felt the need to add on?
So I don't know if it was needed per se. And in their opinion, it was needed. And I can kind of understand where they're coming from. They felt that the Young Bucks needed that edge from 2016, the edge from the Young Bucks of 2016, because that's where the story started with the Revival and the Young Bucks. And, you know, in 2016, they were looked as the anti-authority kind of thing. And I think that they were trying to recreate that with us to just show that they had an edge to it, because so far in AEW, they had been white meat baby faces, right? And now they're having their possibly final opportunity at the AEW World Tag Team Championship with their biggest rivals that they've never touched before. And they felt they needed that edge to go along with it. And so that's where the all the, you know, super kicks and finds and stuff like that started.
There was a story about, I hope I get this right, about Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, and it was in Wrestling with Shadows, where Shawn Michaels ended up hitting Undertaker with the chair, and Bret Hart was mad because he felt it stole his heat a little bit. Do you feel they were kind of stealing your heat a little bit by becoming these heelish characters?
No, I never thought that. I don't even know if I believe that story about Bret and Shawn, because that was a SummerSlam 97, if I'm not mistaken, right? Where Shawn,
referee.
Yeah. Right. I've never heard Bret's only talked glowingly about that moment to me. So I don't know. I could be wrong, and I'm not making it gospel. But I never thought that they were stealing any heat from us, because the fans still loved him. It's not like they double super kicked Moxley, who the fans were enamored with, you know, or had an emotional connection to. It was Mike Posey, and they were going in to work with the top heel tag team. So I never thought that, you know, at that point. There was a time eventually where I thought they were kind of maybe stealing our heat, but we'll get to that later on in our podcast ventures.
Well, later on in September, it was the 23rd of September, and for AEW Dynamite, FTR and Tully Blanchard came out. Tully came out with some stipulations built around Dusty Rhodes' ideas for Tully as the TV champion in the 80s, and you guys had stipulations for your tag team matches. Because usually the last 60 minutes, but you're only going to put the titles up on TV, but with 20 minutes time limits, but you get to pick the opponents. If they don't win in 20 minutes, FTR gets the credit for the win. What in the hell was this, Dax Harwood?
So this was Tully's idea that he had pitched to us, and I thought it could work. I felt like it could work. We called it our Brush with Greatness, obviously stolen from the Hollywood Blondes. The idea was we would give any tag team a title shot for the AEW Tag Team Championships. They just had to beat us within the 20 minutes allotted. And if it went over 20 minutes, or if it was, it was a 20-minute time limit, and if they didn't beat us within the 20 minutes, then we were still the champions. It was a way to have us get more matches on television as a tag team, for us to get over, but also have fresh matches that you might not see again, because these tag teams may not have been in the top 5 contenders.
Right.
Initially it was pitched to bring in a few independent teams to work with too.
Okay, that makes sense.
And it was that's why we called it a brush with greatness, because you got your one opportunity to wrestle the greatest tag team, the AEW Tag Team Champions, and if you could get it done in 20 minutes, you got it done. If you couldn't, goodbye. So that was the initial plan for me. It never really materialized to that, but it was a bit confusing. To nobody's fault except for, I would put the blame on us, because we kind of pushed for that idea, because we felt we needed to be on TV, especially when we figured out we were going to the Bucks next for the pay-per-view. We needed to get on TV to have a few more matches, and just reintroduce ourselves to this audience. Because before that, if you think about it, dude, before that, we had been in WWE, right? And we had we really hadn't had very many opportunities for tag team matches outside of 3-minute matches with Lucha House Party, maybe an off match with someone, a babyface team on on a pay-per-view where we lost, or when Hunter was introducing, when Vince was introducing the NXT guys. Every NXT people that come in, Gargano and Ciampa, Malachi Black and Ricochet,
right.
We were putting these people over. So the fans had seen us lose a lot on TV. So we needed to reintroduce ourselves. And I feel that, a lot of wrestlers get this misconception because something gets a pop, or they get a reaction when they come out, or whatever, that they're over. They're quote unquote over. There are only a handful of people in this business that are actually over. Maybe a couple of handful of people in the whole business that are actually over. Just because you get a reaction doesn't mean you're over. And I've thought that about our whole career. At that point, we were not over. We weren't even close to being over. But like I said, just because you get a reaction doesn't mean you're over. You can go in the ring and sit down and take a shit in the middle of the ring, and there's going to be a reaction. Doesn't mean that you're over. You know what I mean?
It doesn't mean it's good, right?
Doesn't mean it's good. Doesn't mean you're over. When you get an emotional connection with the fans, and that's why I believe there's some kind of middle ground between the people who say moves don't matter and the people say more is more. We need more. There's a middle ground, because moves do matter, but you got to make them matter when the people care about who you are. You understand? And when they care about who you are, that's when you're over. Excuse me. When they care about your home life, or they care about your day-to-day life, or what you're doing, or man, I hope, for example, I know this sounds corny, but man, I hope today Dax is having a good day. That's when you're over, because they love you. They have or they hate you. They have a feeling about you some type of way. That's when you're over. And we, at that time, were not even close to being over. So we needed to reintroduce ourselves. And instead of having squash matches, which, is passe nowadays, that was my idea. Have this match where these tag teams, these random teams from all across the country, had a brush with greatness, quote unquote, worked with us, and we got to go over, and that was just... I should have understood. I should have been smarter to understand that in this day and age with television time the way it is, it's not like it was in the 80s where you could take where it wasn't ratings driven back then. They were still driven by the house show business. So you could take 5 minutes to explain what the Tully Blanchard's 10-minute TV time limit was,
Right.
Nowadays, you don't have that much time to fully explain what it is. And that was a misjudgment on my part, no one else's part. Misjudgment on my part. So I take the blame for that.
I'm not sure it was a misjudgment. Like I said, what the hell is this? Because it wasn't followed up on. It's like the tag ropes thing that happened previous to this. Isn't that the issue, that it wasn't followed up on? Not so much that it's not that complicated. It's an idea, but if you don't talk about it ever again, it's not that great, right?
Yeah, maybe so. And, it could probably have been explained better. I probably could have given better direction to the commentators to explain it a little bit better. I just didn't have that rapport with them yet because I was still kind of new. But yeah, the follow-up could have been better. The execution on my part should have been better. And like I said, I take responsibility for that. That's my fault.
Well, I didn't mention that in the previous Dynamite, you guys wrestled Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. Do you remember that match on Dynamite?
I do remember that was the first time we had a match with them. And I remember it was kind of awkward putting it together, not in a terrible way, but like I've said before, Jungle Boy wasn't a fan of us coming in. He had a preconceived notion of who we were and what we represented, and he maybe didn't think he represented that. I had a decent relationship with Luchasaurus beforehand, and I believe that he trusted us enough. He trusted me enough because we had a relationship beforehand, but he probably trusted me enough that he knew that we were going to work hard for the match and make them look good. And that was our ultimate goal. We were the champions, right? And so if we're the champions and we're winning and we're going to win, then our goal as heels is to make this babyface team look as good as possible. So later on down the road, we have a viable contender in the tag team division that we can work with, but that all the other heel teams can work with too. That's our goal. I saw the upside in the marketing for Luchasaurus, obviously. I saw the whole upside of, and I still do, of Jack Perry. Good-looking kid, great. I think he's a great seller. So young. The people love him.
He improves constantly.
Always, yes. Yeah. So my goal was to make him, Luchasaurus has the exterior. He has the look, you know what I mean? And that's always going to work for him, and that's going to be his selling point. Jack needs to be molded. He needed to be molded at that time as to who he was as a character, as a person, and as a wrestler. So it was my goal then, and when we worked together even further down the road, which we should talk about because I had one of my best singles matches with him. My whole goal every time we worked with them was to make Jack Perry.
Well, you guys are wrestling a lot of tag team matches. The following week, you wrestle SCU. But before that happens, they had a segment. It's kind of a funny one because Nick Jackson wasn't there. I think I recall he either had COVID or when his child was born. I can't remember which one it was, but he wasn't there. But 2 feet super kick Shivani. One of them was probably bad, and the other one might have been, Nick from Rancho Cucamonga. And even Meltzer said, quote, "This is weird." I get the fact that, because he also says the Young Bucks are acting like heels. I get the fact that they're trying to get an edge, but if they're trying to be the tough guys, if they're trying to be the bad guys, where does that leave you in this?
Yeah, it was.
Did you have thoughts about it at the time?
At the time, I did have thoughts about it, but also, I had confidence in us being the heels, and I knew that working the match, I knew we could make the people love them so much that they'd want to see us lose. So I had no confidence issues there at that point. So it didn't bother me as much as maybe people would want it to bother me, especially with all the stories that have gone around about us and the Young Bucks. It didn't bother me as much as maybe some of the guys would have wanted it to, because, again, very confident in me and Cash's abilities in the ring. And I knew that the story that was going to be told that night, whatever the story was that we had decided to come up with, is I think we have, and this is again putting us over, we have this innate ability to understand being a heel sometimes means the fans have to stop cheering for a second. And I think nowadays, and maybe even back then, I don't know, but I think nowadays when the wrestlers hear the fans not really reacting the whole 20 minutes of a match, they get afraid, they get scared, they start chopping meat and going crazy and doing more and more and more and more just to get them to react. But here's the thing, dude, and this is how I correlate psychology, is I could take my best friend, and we could go watch a disaster movie, a movie that's all about blowing shit up or, whatever. And we could watch that movie and have the time of our lives watching that movie in that moment, right? And we could come out of the theater and say, that was a hell of a movie. That was so fun, dude. Did you see that building? It blew up into a million pieces. Oh, my God. And then tomorrow we'd go about our day. Or I could take my friend and we could sit down and watch Citizen Kane. And there are times we're going to be like this, just staring at the screen with our jaws open, trying to process what's going on. And then after the movie's over, and then there's times where we're like, fuck yes, you know what I mean? And there are times where we sit back and we're subdued and we're watching and listening. And then tomorrow, I call my friend up and I was like, dude, that movie was incredible. Do you remember this part of the movie? Oh my God, it was so, blah, blah, blah. And then 70 years later, people are still talking about that movie. That's how you define psychology in a match, And so I think Cash and I have this innate security in our work that we know if they're not screaming for all 20, 30, or 40 minutes of a match, it's okay because we'll get them there. And we understand that there's going to be some fans as a portion of the audience that's going to say, oh my God, this part is boring. It's a chin lock. It's a rest hold, whatever. But you got to understand that we're applying that chin lock. One, it's not a rest hold because we're putting if you watch any chin lock or any hold that myself and Cash have put on, there's so much torque and we're working and we're trying to blow ourselves up to make sure people know that we're working this hold. But the reason we bring it down is so the fans can process what has just happened, in the previous minute and a half. And then they can tie together when they're thinking that they can tie together what's happened in the first 7 minutes. And then we start to bring them back up. And we make them feel a certain way with a hope spot or whatever. So I all that long-winded talk means I was, and I'm sure Cash was too, secure enough in our abilities of being a heel that we weren't worried about what they were doing because we would make the fans on that night love the Young Bucks more than they ever have.
We're going to scoot past the next couple episodes of Dynamite. Although you are going through some tag teams. You beat SCU. And that's a great match. You guys face Jack Evans and Angelico in maybe not so great a match.
Wow, dude, that oof.
We can't go past it, right? We got to talk about that a little bit. Yeah.
What a rough night at the office that was. Maybe, and I'm not putting any blame anywhere.
Probably your worst match in AEW.
Yes, without a question. Yes, I think so. And, God dang, given that much time, if we compare that time to all the matches we've had before, maybe one of our worst, that night just wasn't clicking for anybody. what a rough one, dude. I'm sure Meltzer reveled in the opportunity to say that.
He said, Evans came off the top rope. I have no idea what his plan was.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I mean, Jack Evans has had a great career and has done a lot of great things.
Very talented individual. Very talented.
You ain't kidding. Jack Evans from the heavens. October 14th, the AEW anniversary show, you guys beat the Best Friends. You guys are going through these tag teams. But the real story is there's a supposed random draw to pick 4 teams for the tag title match. It ended up being Private Party, Reynolds and Silver, Butcher and Blade, and the Young Bucks. And the Bucks went on to beat up everybody and cleaned house on you guys included, Butcher and Blade and Reynolds and Silver. At this point in time, we can see what's going on. In the back, are you guys thinking about, are you guys talking with the Bucks, figuring out how you're going to tell this story, or are you not involved in their story at all?
As far as what we're doing, we all had ideas, we had ideas on what we wanted to do, how we wanted to get there. And we pitched them all to Tony, and some of them were taken, some of them weren't taken, some of them were taken, and then little pieces were taken and put the way he wanted. Again, as performers, we're all selfish to some degree, right? And so we all think our story is the most important story on the television show, right? And we really felt that way. We felt that this pay-per-view coming up, we felt that we should be the main event. We felt that our story should get the most time total on TV. Oh, okay, well, I don't want to say we, because I don't want to speak for those guys. I'll speak for me, because if there's any heat, then I want to take the heat. Me, I felt we should be the main event. I felt that our story should take precedence over any other time. And if there was an opportunity for the tag titles to be the main event of a pay-per-view, this was it. And that's what I felt. And I don't think that we necessarily got to the point of great storytelling for the buildup of the match.
So the way it works is that you pitch stuff, probably the Bucks pitch stuff, and then Tony lets you guys know what's going to happen.
Yes.
Is that pretty much it? And you've talked, you've said on Twitter, and you've said a few things here and a few things there about conflicts with the Young Bucks. Is this the very beginning of personal and professional conflicts with the Young Bucks?
100% no. We were on the exact same page here. I think if anything, this was probably the beginning, God dang, this is like therapy. And, I've kind of talked to my wife about this before, and even my therapist, but I think this is where the root, like I've said before, the root of my anxiety stemmed from sleep. Speaking further, the root of that was perfectionism. And it all started from, and we haven't talked about this before, and maybe one day we'll talk to my wife about it, but was the miscarriage of our baby. This was post-Finley. This was about 4.5 years ago. I think that's where the root of my anxiety and probably bitterness towards a lot of the world started, was there. Right. But I think at this point here is where the conflicts between myself and Tony started. And I say that in knowing that it was not Tony's fault. I say that in knowing that the AEW is his company. I felt this match was the most important match of our careers ever. This is the match that people, because, okay, the match with DIY at that point, up to this point, was our most famous match ever, right?
Right.
But people didn't have that expectation going into that 2 out of 3 falls match. They didn't think it was going to be the greatest tag team match of all time. And there's a lot of people who think that now, but they didn't have that expectation. This match and this feud, the people had that expectation. They had that expectation. It was going to be the greatest tag team match of all time, or it was going to have the greatest story told building up to it. And I wanted everything to be perfect, and I, at my own fault, wanted everything to go my way or our way,
Right,
and I felt that we knew better. I shouldn't have felt that way, but I did. So I think this is where a lot of my anxiety started bubbling here, started surfacing here, and we'll talk about that later in the show today. But this is where my conflicts with Tony Khan began, not with the Young Bucks. I think more than anything with the Young Bucks, we were on the same page at this point. They wanted this to be as important as we wanted it to be.
I got a couple questions. I guess I'll start with this one. The anxiety, the conflicts with Tony. Was a lot of that from what you went through before with WWE, and you're like, fuck, it's happening again?
So I remember a few of my friends saying, like, in the company saying, "Oh, this is WWE PTSD. That's all." And I'm like, "No, dude, it's not." I would get angry at them for saying that.
WWE PTSD.
Yeah, and looking back on it now, I don't think it was PTSD. No, I don't think so. I think that for so long on the main roster in WWE, we had been presented as a certain way that I did not agree with, that I didn't like with. And the majority of the fans didn't think that either. They thought we were getting quote unquote buried. And so they had, since AEW had started, excuse me, they had all said, wait till the Revival goes to AEW. They can show then what they are, who they are, and what their worth is, right?
Right.
And so going to AEW, I had so much to prove to myself, to Tony, and to the fans. I had so much to prove, dude. And I was so proud of who myself and Cash were. But I wanted to make sure they knew they were right for thinking that, And I took all of that on the chin. Everything that we were doing, I took it all on the chin and made it personal when I shouldn't have. I should have been enjoying myself and having fun. But I wanted to make sure that the fans were right. And all the things they had said about us and standing behind us and being with us from day one, they all were finally rectified because we were able to do what we wanted to do. And I felt at that time we weren't giving them that. And I took that and I wear my emotions on my sleeve. Right. And it's hard for me. Even now, I've worked on it and tried to get better. I know I'm a flawed human being. I know that I'm if we're talking about Christians and stuff and religion, I'm a sinner. I understand that. But all I can do is try to get better every day. That's all. And I'm trying to get better at that. And it's really, really hard, man. It's a fucking struggle. It's a fight every day. Right. But I wanted to make sure the fans knew they were right. I wanted them to say, see, we told you. We told you. And I felt like we weren't doing that.
Right. And, this whole passionate thing and what happened is you just treated this match as it was the be all fucking end all of the whole world. But at the same time, without that attitude, how does a 5'10" bald guy,
say muffin top, go ahead, say
muffin top guy get to where you got? Like
right.
The path you took to get there and the skills you developed to get there might not have been the same skills you needed to stay there. You just treated this as another thing that you had to overcome and had to beat people up about it and fight about it, but maybe you just didn't have to.
Maybe I didn't have to. You're right. And that took a long time for me to understand. But you got to also think about it like this, dude. Like you said, 5'10", this accent, the way that I look, not so aesthetically pleasing from the neck to the torso, you know what I mean? And maybe even below the torso. Thank you, Blue Chew. But I had everything going against me as a wrestler, and so I had to fight people in the office, or not fight them physically or even verbally. I had to fight for my spot and tell them, no, I'm this good. I had to fight with people who didn't want to sell for me because I'm so small, or quote unquote too small, or because I'm not what they perceive to be not on their level as on a star level. You know what I mean? And so it seems like even on the indies, dude, the same thing. I wish you could. My third match to a wrestling show, I got my nose broken because someone punched me in the nose because they thought that I was trying to lead the match and they didn't want to sell for me. You can ask my best buds, the Dawson brothers. I've gotten more fights with wrestlers and fans too, but more fights with wrestlers than I can count on my two hands because they didn't want to work with me or didn't want to sell for me or had this preconceived idea of who I was or what I was. And it's carried over because of this. And so I think my whole 19 years coming up in August, 19 years of my career, I've had to fight. And I don't know any different. I had to relearn, especially at the end of 2021 and going into 2022, I had to relearn how to approach situations. I had to understand, like you said, it shouldn't have been a fight. Everything doesn't have to be a fight, but that was how I took it. At home, that's how I took it with people, I don't want to say on the streets because that makes me sound like I was some big badass, but at home or at school, that's how I took it. That's how I had to deal with things. It was a fight. In the wrestling, that's how I had to deal with things because it was a fight. In the locker room, in the office, I had to deal with it because I had to fight for it. And I hadn't lost that thought process yet, or I hadn't matured away from that thought process yet. And at the time I was way too old to be thinking that, but I still had not mentally matured from that. I wish I would have earlier, because 2022 could have happened a few years prior, maybe, Right. But yeah, again, that's where my issues with Tony started. I wish I was more mature then and handled things more mature back then.
Well, let your wife and Finley know this show's going to run a little long because I have a question for you.
Okay.
Which is all I do, but I'm making it sound like it's important. Here's the question, though. All that shit you said about you had to do all this stuff to be taken seriously. Have you ever considered the fact that the Young Bucks have the exact same fucking journey? Like in a lot of ways, like think about all the shit they get. Think about all the stuff they're told, too small. They can't, they're these spot monkeys and they don't belong here. They're not prime time. They are dealing with the same thing you're dealing with in the fact that they're trying to prove themselves. And then they see these two WWE guys come in and maybe they think, these fuckers think they're better than us, but we chose to be here, and they've got the same chip on their shoulder that you have on yours.
All right, man. I like it better when you agree with me. No, I guess I'd never have really. I mean, I know the struggles, and it's well documented the struggles they've had. I know them, but at the time, again, I wasn't mentally mature enough to think about that. I was thinking about the moment. I was thinking about it in the moment, and
I get that. I'm talking purely in retrospect.
Yeah. But again, at this moment, we were on good terms. There was nothing that had happened, in this moment. We were fine with each other, and we agreed on a lot of things, and we were all working together to make this the biggest possible tag match that the wrestling world had ever seen. That was our idea. So again, like I said, it wasn't an issue with them. It wasn't an issue with the Bucks. It was my issue with Tony at the time. And it was me not realizing that there is more to the wrestling world than Dax Harwood. And I should have. And I was wrong for that. Even if I realized at the time I was wrong, I probably wouldn't have admitted it because, again, I was mentally immature. And I felt I had to fight for everything. So I'm taking it on the chin, dude. You don't have to add on. I'm taking it on.
On the 21st of October, the Young Bucks are set as your opponents. They win a 4-way over Butcher and Blade, Silver and Reynolds, and Private Party, 13 minutes, 29 seconds. FTR was on commentary. You guys came out to congratulate them. The Young Bucks knocked the beers out of your hands, and you guys brawled. You gave Nick a stiff pile driver, and then you guys beat down Matt, and then all of a sudden, a guy comes in the ring. He's masked, and he joins in the attack, and it's Tully Blanchard who actually pulled it off. Most guys that age, you could tell it was Tully, but him, you're like, oh, goddamn, Tully moves good.
Yeah. Well, Tully is an incredible athlete, even for his age. Incredible athlete. He stayed in shape.
He's a West Texas Tech football player too, right?
Yep, quarterback.
Yeah.
Yep. So every Wednesday, every Wednesday morning I would go to Bailey's Gym in Jacksonville, Florida, and he never missed a Wednesday. He never missed a gym shot. He was always there. He keeps himself in great shape. We had the Tully Blanchard retirement match, the 6-man tag that I'm sure we'll talk about one day, but he looked great. He worked great. Dude, he's always kept himself in great shape. He is an anomaly for sure.
And we're going to talk about Tully on future episodes because, man, how could you not love Tully? But the match has been set, and they start making videos on the following Dynamite, which is November 4th. The Young Bucks beat Private Party. It was another good match, Meltzer said. Series of cradles, and then Nick super kicked Mark Quinn. They used a BTE trigger, but here's what really happens is that you guys attack Matt, and you go to Pillmanize his ankle. You definitely hurt his ankle. What was the idea? I mean, is this just the old idea of making the babyface an underdog by hurting Matt? Matt's ankle's been hurt. Was that your thought going in?
No. So the thought going in was, I don't think any of us did, but I'm only going to speak for me because this is my podcast. I didn't think we should have touched at all until the match. I didn't feel like we should touch. Any of us should have touched at all. I don't think this match. I think the first time we touched, the people should have paid to see it, or should have wanted to pay to see it. Let's put it like that. But this match was thrust upon us this quick. We really didn't have a ton of time to build to a story that we liked, so we needed to get some heat on this match as soon as possible. And so thinking back, in 2016, 17, 18, and 19, the whole story of this match to me was super kicks versus super fists, which we'll talk about later. Sure. And so if we were going to attack them, I said we should probably injure your ankle because that's your super kick foot, right? And that'll get more heat, and I felt like that could get more heat for the story. So I didn't want to do any kind of physicality with these guys until the match. But I think at that time, Tony probably wanted some, and we felt that it warranted it as quick as the match was approaching.
And the match does approach. It is set. Young Bucks versus FTR at Full Gear, November 7th, 2020. Anything happened before that match as far as talking about what would happen, expectations of what would happen? How are you feeling going into that day? Are you still on great terms and you're still thinking, hey, everything's going to go the way I want it? I'm very, very excited about this. Or was it negative?
Yeah. Excuse me. No, on good terms. But as I spoke about earlier, I think this is where I first saw the signs of anxiety. I remember leading up to this match, I thought about it in my kitchen, in my living room. I would take my iPad downstairs or whatever to my old house at the time, the bar, and I would watch wrestling and try to think of ideas and how can we make this match a classic? How can we make this match live up to the expectation, almost the unreal expectations fans had probably put up there, and probably the same with us, the unreal expectations we had put up there for ourselves. And I remember, dude, there were nights where, and I never realized this until I started talking with my therapist, but there were nights back to back where I couldn't fall asleep because I couldn't get this match out of my head because I couldn't figure out certain points of the match. And I pride myself on being able to usually do that, to be able to structure a match together pretty quick and figure out what.
So it wasn't excitement, or it was more like, no, I don't know what to do here.
Yeah. I mean, I would be lying if I said I wasn't excited, but more than anything, I was nervous and anxious about the match. And when I say I can see a match play out in my head, I don't mean step by step, but I mean the beats and the drama and the story that we're going to tell. And I couldn't figure it out. And I would stay up, dude. I'm not kidding, to 12, 1, 2 in the morning and couldn't fall asleep. And I would lay in bed and try to force myself to fall asleep. And I'd wake up so pissed, or not even wake up. I would get up so pissed at myself because I couldn't figure out the match, because I couldn't make myself fall asleep. And so I was mad at myself for the two things that I wanted to do, but I couldn't do them. It would just drive me crazy, man. And I remember waking my wife up one morning. It was like 2 or 3 in the morning. I was like, babe, I cannot fall asleep. I can't get this match down. I'm going to shit the bed, blah, 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 and like, I remember that, thinking back on it now, that was the first signs of anxiety for me, and probably my first anxiety attack, but I didn't know what anxiety was at the time. So I was really, really, really afraid. And again, like I said, multiple times, I pride myself on not practicing a match or walking through a match or talking about it, weeks or days beforehand, because thoughts, emotions, something in the world could change, and you got to change with it too, to make the people feel a certain way. It was a tough time mentally for me then.
I think I get it. Like the burden of expectation that you've built over so long, and then having to deliver, finally getting what you want, finally getting opportunity, and then in that moment having trouble doing something you've always been able to do, which is kind of create how the match goes in your head. Do you look like you want to take a sip? You want to take a sip?
No. I wanted to say also, above wrestlers. And I'm not asking for sympathy or, anybody to say, oh, poor Dax or poor wrestlers, but above wrestlers, above baby faces, above heels. We're human beings, right? So we have every single struggle that you have. We have every single emotion that you have. Every single fear that you have, we have, right? And I would go online reading, leading up to this match, and read the shit people were saying about the build or about our performances for the build and things. And that really hurt me. And it fucking killed me, dude, because it killed my confidence and like killed me mentally. And so all those things combined, it was just a rough few weeks for sure.
Did it ever enter in your head, is this the thing where you say, God, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was? Like, I can't do this. I'm not good enough. Yep.
I thought about that every day. Like, if I'm with these guys who are considered 1A and 1B, the greatest tag team in the world, and I can't figure this out, maybe WWE was right. Maybe Vince was right. Maybe Road Dogg was right. Maybe I should have stayed at a certain level and just been happy to make money. Confidence was in question at this point, at this, leading up to this match, the week leading up to this match. And I was worried, dude. Because this was our opportunity. And the match with Hangman and Omega, I was not happy with at all. There's a lot of things that I'm not happy with for that match behind the scenes, but also in front of the scenes too. I wasn't happy because one, there were no fans there to judge if you're doing the right stuff, but also, man, we were killing ourselves out there in that humidity and that heat. And I just felt that wasn't our best performance. And that was the first time we had an opportunity to show the people we've been right. You guys have been right. We've all been right this whole time. We're the greatest, and we didn't do it there. So now we had to do it at this moment. And so it was just, was
coming off
rough.
of that match too, you didn't feel like it worked. And it did sound like it's a little PTSD. I think we're going to call that post-traumatic Stamford disorder.
Good one.
And, another good one is our sponsor, something you use every day, Athletic Greens. Dax takes AG1 by Athletic Greens literally every day. Dax, why did you give AG1 Athletic Greens a try?
Well, I'd heard, I listened to the podcast, all of Conrad's podcasts, ritually every single week, and I'd heard Athletic Greens talked about and advertised, and I found out they were going to be maybe a sponsor on our show. So I was like, man, I need to, if I'm going to sponsor them, I want to try them out. I want to try them out firsthand, because people, I told you just before the podcast, people can see through anybody who's just trying to sell something, right?
Right.
I tried the very first day I got my order of Athletic Greens in. I tried it, and it was easily the best greens I've ever had, but also didn't taste like greens. Didn't feel like taking your normal powdered greens. It wasn't chalky. It wasn't clumpy. It wasn't chunky. It was, it was the smoothest greens I have ever had. Plus the taste was incredible. I use it every day after my workouts, post-workout with my creatine. Make sure I get my vitamins A, D, E, C, K, my B vitamins as well to help the energy go up. And it's just such an easy way. Instead of taking 30 pills a day, it allows me to confide that into one small scoop.
Well, just like a lot of great athletes, and you are a great athlete. I mean, you see Dax in person, you're like, what muffin top? What are you talking about? You're in amazing shape, and you take care of your body. That's something you have to think about. You said before you take Athletic Greens on pretty much every day, but you make sure to take it on cardio day, but cardio day is every day. Mm-hmm. And a huge part of taking care of your body is optimizing your whole body health. With every daily serving, you're setting yourself up for success with 75 high quality ingredients that give you key daily nutrients and long-term gut health support. It's a micro habit that delivers macro benefits and helps almost everybody take care of their health. So, if a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs. You don't need those yet because you're not going on the road for a little bit. But when you do, you got them. With your first purchase, all you got to do is go to athleticgreens.com/FTR. That's athleticgreens.com/FTR. Check it out. So Athletic Greens, you like them?
I love hold on, here we go. Let's try that one more time, David. Take 2. I love Athletic Greens. And the crazy thing is the word athletic is in there. It is right in there. But it's not just for athletes. I've told you before, I've said it on the podcast before, my wife absolutely loves Athletic Greens. She takes a milk frother, puts it in her cup, spins it around, shoots it, and she's good to go. She just gave a week's worth of packs to her father, who has to take greens because the vitamins and minerals, and obviously some of the antioxidants inside help with his. I'm not saying it's going to help with everybody, but some of the things the doctors prescribe to him or tell him he needs the vitamins for his psoriasis, and it helps with that. So yeah, he's a fan too.
Well, make sure to go visit them at athleticgreens.com/FTR. Are you ready to talk about Full Gear 2020, Dax Harwood?
Dude, let's do it. I just watched the whole pay-per-view today before we got on, and I'm excited.
Me too, man. It takes some getting used to, with the small crowds and the little
my gosh,
and nobody close by, and there's talent on the side, but otherwise you're playing to the people that are far away. And it starts out on the pre-show. You have Serena Deeb versus Allison Kay. But on the main show, the first match, they start off with Kenny Omega against Adam Page. First of all, what do you think about the match?
The match was, the match was a really good match. They started out, full guns blazing. I felt like this doesn't mean it's wrong or bad, but I felt it was a very Japanese style G1 tournament matchup, and those guys had something to prove, I believe, and this was the beginning of a story for them. I'm a huge fan of Adam Page in the ring. I think he's unorthodox in a great way. I think that he wrestles like nobody else. I think there's I think he doesn't follow the tropes of a lot of wrestlers, but also if he does it in his own way, which I think is very commendable. And he combines athleticism with kick ass. And the thing is, ultimately, if the fans don't believe that you can fight, they're not going to believe in you.
Right.
They can see you do all the flips, and he does the top rope moonsault to the floor. He does that, which is beautiful. He does the flipping clothesline thing. That's a beautiful move. But when he throws punches and kicks, that's when they believe in you. You know what I mean? If you look credible as a fighter, that's when they believe you. I'm a huge fan of Adam Page, and I think he shined in this match, even in defeat.
I always thought Page reminded me a little bit of Magnum TA.
Okay.
I think if he approached Magnum, had that same thing. Like, he was this good-looking guy who was kind of humorless and kind of but had this charisma that Page had. I thought it was a pretty good match. It went about 16 minutes. Meltzer gave it 4.5 stars.
Express.
But I really liked the next match. I liked Orange Cassidy against John Silver. They had 10 minutes. They did their thing. What did you think of this match, and what do you think of those two fellas?
Yeah, dude, I think that, and I'm sure this is going to get me in trouble, some of my peers, or some of the not even my peers, but some of the people who are a generation above me. I think if you don't think Orange Cassidy is good, you need to reevaluate and watch some of his stuff. I understand that some guys from a different era can say, "Oh, but he's hokey," or he does this. But then, in the same era they're from, Jimmy Valiant was fake peeing on people like he was a dog. You know what I mean?
Right,
or sticking his thumb up their butt. And so you got to think about the entertainment aspect too. This guy can go, he can wrestle. But imagine if Orange Cassidy, who's gotten over to the extent that he's gotten over because of his gimmick and because of his character, and the weird charisma that he has, and the unique charisma that he has, because it's only unique to him. No one else has gotten over the way he's gotten over. But if he went out there and started wrestling like Johnny Saint, it wouldn't correlate. It wouldn't match together. Or if he went out there and, like we talked about Magnum TA, if he kicked ass for, 5 minutes straight and fought and punched and all this stuff, it wouldn't correlate. I think he works so smart without shitting on the business. You know what I mean? And that's what I respect. I think that he uses this thing with his pockets as a quote unquote distraction for his opponents. It's about how his opponents sell it too. If they make it a mockery and if they make it a joke, then it is a joke. But he uses it as a distraction. And I think he does that so smartly. I'm a huge fan of his, and I think his selling is completely underrated. I remember he had a match with, I think it was a 3-way with Pac and Omega. And I remember telling him, either texting him or talking to him that night, I can't remember. I told him he made that match because he sold so well that everyone bought all of his false finishes. I can't say enough good things about Orange Cassidy.
Yeah, Pac Orange Cassidy is one of my favorite matches in the history of AEW. It's such a great match. The Orange Cassidy character, do people miss on it a little bit when they hate on it? They think it's making a mockery. But isn't the character just mocking his opponent? Isn't he getting under his opponent's skin by acting like it's not a big deal? Is that the character, or do you see it differently?
Listen, dude, I think this, better than most people do. I take wrestling very seriously, too seriously sometimes. So if I can get on board, with Orange Cassidy and understand what he's doing, then I feel that most people should be able to. If he was going out there and wrestling the Invisible Man, or he was, doing these hokey spots that shit on wrestling, I could understand it. I could get it. But he works it perfectly, and that's all I can say. He's, for his gimmick, he is the perfect wrestler.
The next match is Darby Allin versus Cody Rhodes. Cody put Darby Allin on the map a couple years ago by going 20 minutes with him in a draw. What did you think of the match? I thought it was awesome. Yeah,
looking back at the card before I watched the show, this was the match I was most looking forward to. I loved this match. I took a picture of me watching and sent it to Cody, and I said, "Hey, dude, I'm not trying to blow smoke. I hate putting other wrestlers over." I said, "But this match is beautiful. This is so beautiful." I took notes on this match because it was so good. they start off with wrestling and they start off with holds, right? And Cody is your perennial, typical veteran wrestler. And Darby is your underdog, and they play both parts so perfectly and so well. But they were exchanging holds, and that's what our business is based around. The reason there are high spots, and I've told so many wrestlers this, the reason there are high spots is because there are holds. Ding, 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 and you start off on a high spot, no one understands it. They may pop for the finish of the high spot, but that's because they're popping for the finish of the high spot, but they still subconsciously don't get it. They're like, oh, why do they just start running? Why do they start moving? The basis of our business is holds. You start off with a hold. You can't wrestle your way out of it, so you shove them off to get out of that hold, and that's where the high spot starts. That was so incredible. Watching this match, dude, I was so impressed still with Darby, but he's matured so much from then. He's always been very crisp and always been very sudden, with his movements. But his selling was great then at this point, but it's matured so much now to a main event level seller. I can't speak enough about that. Cody was out wrestling Darby, and then finally Darby out wrestled Cody. He got the better of him, and Cody got embarrassed, an emotion that everybody understands. He got embarrassed that he got out wrestled and then got out quicked, following right after that, got out quicked by Darby. And so they come back and there's the hammerlock on the arm. Cody reverses or whatever. Darby reaches back and Cody picks him up and bumps him on the on the ramp with a hammerlock slam, and that's how they started.
That was brutal. Yeah.
Looked brutal. But what Cody did was not illegal, right? These are two baby faces. You got to remember that. What Cody did was not illegal, but this match had been worked so beautifully up to this point that people subconsciously thought, oh, Cody, why did you have to do that? You didn't have to, you know what I mean? You didn't have to go to that. You didn't have to go that low, even though it wasn't a move that was cheating. It was perfectly within the rules. And then Cody completely slows it down and he starts working that arm and grinding the arm with holds, short arm scissors, which you don't see very often because most wrestlers are afraid to put it on because they think there's no way to get out of it. But he grounded Darby with that, but Darby valiantly kept fighting back, but kept selling the arm perfectly. I think watching it back, Arn is great in that coach role, wearing that coach attire. I think Arn, that's what he is meant to do now, I feel like. I thought the match was awesome. I love towards the end when a lot of wrestlers, when wrestlers use multiple pinfalls, because,
right.
I remember one time working with a wrestler, one time working with Sami Zayn, and I was like, okay, at this point, I think you should hit me with this roll up, and then followed by a roll up, and then I roll you up, and then we do we try to blow each other up with roll ups. He's like, I don't think at this point in the match they're going to buy this with roll ups. We'll buy the roll ups as finishes. And I said, I understand that, man. But the point in the story we're trying to tell now is that at this point in the match, we're doing whatever we can to win. So just because they don't count 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, oh my God, that's not the point of this part of the story. The point is subconsciously they think they're doing whatever they can, taking any advantage they can to win, any pinfall they can to win, and that's what they did. And then Darby, beat him with a roll up, and I thought it was beautifully executed.
It was a great match that told the story of passing the torch to Darby Allin from Cody Rhodes. Of course, Arn Anderson was the coach out there. A lot has been made about the Codyverse. It seemed like Cody at the time was operating his own little part of the show. He didn't really interact with the other guys. There were rumors that he didn't get along with the rest of the elite at the time. Did you notice any kind of strangeness or weirdness about Cody just kind of doing his own little thing in his own little corner of the show?
So, you think about the show, you think about any show, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, everybody's doing their own thing in their own corner of the show. The Bloodline was doing their own thing in a corner of the show. You know what I mean? You think about right now, Jericho and Ricky Starks,
Right.
they're doing their own thing in the corner of a show. That's just how wrestling is. I think at this point, Cody was trying to do what was best for AEW, and of course, he was probably looking out for Cody Rhodes himself too. I'm not that dumb and naive to think that, but we all have to look out for ourselves at some point. But I also think he was looking out for the best interest of the company of AEW. And there were so many guys there who had never gone beyond independent wrestling up until this point. They didn't really understand what was going on or why he was doing certain things, but he was doing it to protect the what's the word I'm looking for? The integrity of one Cody Rhodes, but also the integrity of professional wrestling and making every little thing mean something. So, I do think some people may have got rubbed the wrong way. I don't think Cody did anything malicious. And that's just me. I don't know. I was never in any booking meetings. I was never in close quarters with anybody at this time. Most people were probably looking at me as the outsider anyway. So I didn't. I had cash and that was it. But Cody was at that time. I think he was probably the face of the company as far as doing all the media. Doing all the interviews, doing all the appearances, you know what I mean? So
outside projects, all kinds of
yes,
stuff.
he was on TBS shows. So we have to protect him to a certain degree because he's doing all this for us and he's a big star and he's like the face or one of the faces of the company. So he can't go out and lose every single week because if he does, people will lose faith in him. And I think that sometimes some of the guys maybe had forgotten that or didn't understand that.
And when you look at what he did for Darby here and what he did for Sammy and lighting himself on fire with Andrade and going off the top of that damn cage with a moonsault against Wardlow, like this is a guy who seemed to be very giving to the younger talent.
Giving to the younger talent, of course, but ultimately giving to wrestling. He loved I don't know too many people who love professional wrestling more than him, and that's a shoot. That is a 100% shoot. And I'm saying that with me in mind too. There could be days where we battle back and forth about the love of wrestling, or for the love of wrestling. But I don't know if anybody. There aren't too many people in wrestling who love it as much as he does. I'll leave it at that.
The next match is Hikaru Shida versus Nyla Rose. Nyla Rose is someone when AEW first started was really treated like the one of the faces of the company and kind of maybe wasn't ready yet for that, but seems to have grown in that role lately. What do you think of where Nyla Rose is now, and what did you think of this match?
Yeah, so in saying that, I wrote that Nyla has grown so much and learned so much since this point in her career. She is someone who always, when I'm there, always asks for advice or always asks me to watch the match and give her critiques afterwards. And it's not just lip service because I've seen her take those critiques and use them in her following matches and then ask me, hey, I did this. Did you see it? Yeah, I saw it. And this is what I think. So I commend her for wanting to grow and wanting to be better and learn. This, to me, watching this match is the difference in, I've spoke about it before, but independent wrestling and television wrestling and how the perception from the fans of you means more than a great match. They were building Nyla Rose as the Beast. I even think they called her the Beast, or they still do, or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
But in this match, I felt that she was bumping around like Tully Blanchard instead of working like Aja Kong. You know what I mean?
Right.
Instead of being a killer, she was being a chicken shit heel that I would have been, or the way I would have worked. I think that comes with confidence too, because I think a lot of people who are being pushed as monsters or the company wants to portray someone as a monster has this idea, well, man, I also want to show that I can do all this stuff. And so they try to show it. But you show it when you get over. Do you understand? When you finally get over, that's when you can start bumping around a little bit. You know what I mean? That's when you come in after you've killed a few people, then someone bumps you. And then when that person that bumped you, they get over even more, you know? And so I think a lot of the guys and girls, get into their own heads about, well, I need to show off my athleticism and what I can actually do. But if you do that too soon, they've already lost their perception of you. I also felt that this match had a lot of outside stuff. There should have been multiple countouts, you know. There should have been multiple times where the ref should have counted them out, but they were just fighting all over the ring and all over in the fans and stuff like that. So that was a small little critique from me. I think the content was really good of what they did. I thought it was executed very, very well. But I feel that this was a point where Nyla was still brand new to national television, of course, and she was trying to prove her worth. I think now she has learned more and understood more of who she is, what she is, and how to work to make her character mean even more. You know what I mean? Again, the match was good. The match was really good, but did Nyla Rose need to have a good match here, or did she need to be a killer, have Sheeta fight from underneath and make Sheeta valiantly come out and beat her, and then it would mean more for both of them? That's my opinion. There are probably going to be a shit ton of headlines about me burying this match. I liked the match. SRS, I liked the match, okay? Fightful, I liked the match. I'm just telling you how I perceive my psychology. That's all.
The next match is Young Bucks against FTR, and we're going to talk about that after we talk about the rest of the card. The match following your match was Matt Hardy against Sammy Guevara in an Ultimate Deletion match. First of all, what do you think about these cinematic matches? Really, Matt Hardy kind of invented the genre. And what did you think about this match in particular? Is this a welcome addition to your wrestling watching, or is this something that you wish you kind of wasn't a thing?
I don't think I'm smart enough to pull it off. I'll put it like that. I don't think I am smart enough to pull it off, make it credible, and make it entertaining. So I give all the kudos to Matt Hardy for all of the cinematic matches he's done and introducing cinematic wrestling to our world. I am not a hater of cinematic matches. Unless there's a complete wink and nod at the camera, then that maybe I would feel a little different. But I commend him for being a visionary, making it very entertaining, which it was, but also keeping it physical, athletic, and working within the parameters of professional wrestling. So, yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are waiting for me to shit on the match, and it would probably get us a lot more views and a lot more downloads, but I can't because if I'm going to shit on it, I'm going to shit on it because I am insecure because I wouldn't be able to pull it off, so the match for what it was and what it represented and what it was supposed to be, knocked it out of the park.
What was your favorite part about the cinematic match with?
I didn't expect all the people to just come out of nowhere. So I think everyone just being at the compound or whatever. I thought, Hurricane. I thought that was probably the most enjoyable part for me.
So the next match is MJF versus Chris Jericho. If MJF wins, he gets to join the Inner Circle. Speaking of wink and nod stuff, the build up to this featured a musical number with MJF and Chris Jericho where they completely broke the fourth wall and completely just did a song and dance together. Have you seen it, and what did you think about it?
I've seen it, but I really don't want to spend time talking about Max, because if I do, then I will for sure get myself in trouble with my current employer, and I don't want to do that. So I will allow you to cover this match and cover whatever else you want to talk about MJF. If you have questions, I might answer, but I don't really want to particularly talk about it and expound upon it, because I know that I will get myself in hot water with the office, and I don't want to put this podcast in hot water, because I really enjoy it and I really enjoy what we deliver to the fans. So I'll leave it at that.
But to be clear to the listeners, this isn't like shtick, right? Like,
what do you mean? Like, this is
like a lot of people hate on Max, but it's shtick. That it's
like a gimmick
character, right?
If what you see on TV is his character, I'll put it that way. I don't hate on that. I think it's, good for him, whatever. I'm talking about the guy that I worked with in the Pinnacle. Let's just put it that way.
Right. Okay. So just want to make that clear. Of course, the match ended. Chris Jericho hugs MJF because he is now in the Inner Circle. Wardlow is now also in the Inner Circle. And I guess they're going to feud with some people we know pretty soon. The Inner Circle and the Pinnacle is coming up. We're going to talk about it on a future episode when you're ready.
That'll take a lot of tequila, because I have to make sure I don't get in trouble for that.
We talked a lot earlier about Eddie Kingston. Eddie Kingston, Jon Moxley is the headline match in an I Quit match for the AEW title. You got to give it up for Kingston for getting to this point and being credible and having people like myself thinking maybe he should win the title, but also Jon Moxley just for being kind of this ultimate, the high bar in AEW. What'd you think about it, of this match?
Yeah. Like you said, give it up for Eddie Kingston. I think, and I'm either going to get a lot of shit for it, maybe a lot of side eyes from it. I think Eddie is our version of Dusty Rhodes. You know what I mean? The common man who can talk better than anybody else in the business and make people feel a certain way. It doesn't matter what situations he is put in, he still makes the people feel a certain way about what he's doing. And that is a very rare, help me out here with the word, key to have in your arsenal. Commodity. It's a very rare tool to have quality in your arsenal, and he has it, dude. He makes people care because what he says he believes. When he fights, he believes that too. I can't say enough good things about Eddie. I think he's a great human being, someone who texts me on the regular just to ask how my wife and daughter are doing. Every time I see him, we hug, tell each other we love each other. He asks about the family all the time. I ask him about his family. We have almost gotten a fight before, which is very funny. We apologized the very next day, but it's because we're just two proud guys, and cooler heads prevailed, and we'll talk about it one day. Maybe I'll have him on the show, and he and I can talk about it.
Love to have him.
It's something that we laugh about now, but he is. I love him. I have an infinite amount of love for him because he overcame all the odds and he made it. And he, like I told you earlier in the show, he was so emotional and so proud that he was main eventing a pay-per-view for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship with his best friend, Jon Moxley. The match was great. You don't hit anybody any harder than you hit your best friends. So that's what they did in this match for sure.
We talked before about Jon Moxley. You said you only worked with him a little bit. You don't know him, but so much. But starting here and going through recent history, Jon Moxley's been relied upon a lot by AEW.
Oh, yeah.
When the Punk thing happened, they had to go to him. When Punk got injured, they had to go to him. My man had a vacation. He couldn't go on for years, Mm-hmm. What do you think about Jon Moxley's importance in All Elite Wrestling? Yeah,
he's a great guy. He's a man's man. He loves wrestling. He loves wrestling. Huge star, and I don't think that AEW would be where it is without Jon Moxley. I think he should be our number one priority in the business right now for our company. And I think Tony has, but I think that he should be looked at that way, taken care of that way, featured that way. And he and I, aside from loving our families, aside from, considering ourselves men's men, we don't have very much in common. I'm sure we don't listen to the same music. I'm sure we don't share the same qualities of life, but I respect the hell out of him. I respect him for putting AEW above a lot of things he probably shouldn't have. And I respect how much he loves wrestling. Plus, I think he's shown what a great psychologist in the ring he is since he's come here, Right. One of my favorite matches I've ever seen of his was him versus Hunter at Roadblock in 2016. Right. An incredible match. I love that match. And then he's had obviously kick-ass matches, and he and I were neck and neck for from a lot of people's wrestler of the year. And right. I pushed and pleaded and begged to have a match with him in AEW, but Tony just didn't see that the way that I did, and we just never got around to it. And that's fine. But I thank him enough. I can't thank him enough for the work he's put into AEW, because without that work that he's put into AEW, I wouldn't be able to take care of my wife and daughter to the extent that I've taken care of them. And we all owe him a lot for that.
But now let's talk about what we all came to hear today, which is Young Bucks beat FTR in 28 minutes and 46 seconds to win the AEW tag titles. I got lots of questions. Twitter's got lots of questions. First of all, as you approach the match, as you're getting close, you said, I don't rehearse. Yes. Young Bucks seem like they might be rehearsers. How did the planning of the match go?
The planning was probably not as structured as they would have liked, and probably more structured than I would have liked. But that's being a professional and meeting in the middle. I watched the match back today for the first time in years, and I was blown away with how much I loved it, how much I thought I loved the match. It was two different styles, and I wrote some notes down too. Coming out, they had on this beautiful gear with all these colors and flashy and, and tassels and everything. And they were wearing the Lakers colors. And coming out for us, we wore plain warm-up suits, white with basic colors on it. Right. And it was the Celtics. And that was a plan from the get-go. I'd called and, I talked to these guys and I said, look, people consider this the biggest tag team rivalry in wrestling right now. What do you guys think about? My first thought was we could do Brett and Sean gear, but I thought that was too much. I thought I'd taken it too far because people already connected the two of us, me and Cash, with Bret Hart and our work, right. The two of them with Sean. And so I said the biggest rivalry in sports is probably, I thought Carolina and Duke was the biggest rivalry in sports, but I thought that generalized it too much to one section of the right, country. Yeah. Right. So the next biggest one, in my opinion, was Celtics and Lakers, and we were all on board for that. I love the fact that we started off the match slow, because people and Young Bucks fans and AEW fans were probably used to their matches, which are a little more fast paced. But I felt this was the opportunity, especially with them coming out and having this edge to them or whatever. We needed to show the people that they, one, could be gritty, two, they could out wrestle us, and they could just keep up with us wrestling. Everyone knew they were going to out quick us. Everybody knew they were faster than us, but could they out wrestle us? So I love the fact that we used holds and we put the high spots in the perfect opportunity. But then when we got to the crescendo of the high spot, we brought it right back down and held it in a hold and slowed down to allow the people. Finally, we had 1,000 people. We got to have 1,000 people in the audience, and that meant so much to us. Like, coming from having nobody in the audience to having 1,000 people in a 10,000 seat amphitheater or whatever was like having a sold out Madison Square Garden. It was so emotional, which I'll talk about to the end. We had Tully Blanchard banned from ringside, and that was my idea, because people had looked forward to this match for so long. They had looked forward to FTR versus the Young Bucks. And I felt that if Tully was out there, he would just be a distraction to the match. I think the people wanted to see these two entities go at it. And I felt if Tully was there, not any fault of his own, but just as people watching, he would be a distraction by the ring. You know what I mean? So that's why we had him banned. Again, like I told you earlier, super kicks versus super fists. And we had injured the ankle, and that was what we were going to. But I, injured my hand on the ring post, and they worked the shit out of my hand. Like, they were so aggressive, and I think that showed a different side of them that the AEW fans hadn't really seen before. They'd seen how athletic these guys were and how impressive they both were at in their matches, but that showed a completely different side of them, and this edge they had built up meant something now because they went to work on my hand that was legit busted open. So we had gone from, this was the first time we'd actually had fans in the audience, back in the audience, and we had gone from completely having nobody there to having 1,000 fans, and those 1,000 fans sounded like a sold out Madison Square Garden. It was it was so beautiful. But in saying that and having the limited fans there, it was hard to determine our heat. It was easy to shine these guys up because they're so incredible at what they do as far as athleticism goes and selling and stuff. But, as far as the heat goes, especially someone who doesn't really call a whole bunch of stuff, like, it was hard to determine how they were feeling or when I needed to take them up or bring them down or keep them here. You know what I mean?
Because you call matches on the fly, you really depend on the crowd a lot, right?
Right. And, again, I have ideas and they know maybe where the ideas are, what the ideas are, but how we set them up when we decide to like the hope spots, for example, when I'm going to include them or put them in the point of the match, like, it determines a lot on how the crowd's feeling and how they're reacting. And it's hard to do that in an environment like that. But I watched it today and I was very, very proud of the match. I loved it, man. But also on commentary, dude, I got to tell you, if you think that JR is out of touch, watch this match back. He was on fire. I mean, I commend Excalibur because he knows all the names of holds and he can keep up with the action, the pace, and he can nail all this stuff. And on the other end of that, JR was getting all of the emotion in, and he was telling the story that we wanted to be told. So was Excalibur. I'm not downgrading him or shortchanging him. I'm just saying for this match at least, I'm just talking about specifically this match, they were great dancing partners. And then Shivani's there and he's such a lovable character. Anyway, people are going to love what he brings and his enthusiasm. But the two styles of Excalibur and JR was just, they were both great dancing partners, and they were both on fire.
Dax Harwood, we have a brand new sponsor. Of course, I know you're no stranger to the Conrad podcast, right?
Right.
And we've heard about Magic Spoon for years, and I tell you what, I finally got to taste it because it's a new year, new you. Stay on track with Magic Spoon, cereal that tastes like your childhood faves, but with more protein and less sugar. Dax, where are you at on cereal?
Every cheat day that I have with my family, every cheat day at the end of the night, I have at the very least 3/4 of a box of cereal. That's my favorite cheat meal. Okay, there's bread and cereal, and they battle for 1 and 2 all the time. I am enamored with cereal. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Well, the good thing with Magic Spoon, they got all different kinds, and I don't eat cereal much because, I'm not trying to put on any more weight, maybe trying to lose a little bit of weight. And cereal just packs it on, man. It really does pack on the pounds. Growing up, cereal was one of the best parts of being a kid. But as I got older, I had to watch out for sugar and empty carbs. Magic Spoon has the amazing flavors you love, but high protein and less sugar. And the one I have right here in front of me, is the peanut butter one. It is delicious. It smells great, and it tastes great, and it's got that texture you like in cereal. And what you want to do is get the variety pack that we got. The variety pack has 4 flavors: are cocoa, fruity, frosted, and peanut butter. Out of those flavors, which one do you think is your favorite, Dax?
Well, the thing is I love peanut butter. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are probably overall my favorite food ever. But the bad thing about peanut butter and loving peanut butter is a lot of the peanut butter flavored things really doesn't taste like peanut butter. It tastes like It tastes like manufactured peanut butter, fake peanut butter, and the Magic Spoon cereal does not taste like fake peanut butter to me.
It does not, and I just had some just a minute ago, and I'll tell you what, it tastes like real peanut butter, and I love some peanut butter. This pack has the variety pack has 0 grams of sugar, 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and 4 to 5 net grams of carbs. Only 140 calories a serving. So it's high protein, has 0 grams of sugar, keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, and soy-free. There's a reason why you've been hearing about these cereals on the podcast for so long. I'm so glad we have it, and I'm so glad I have cereal in the house that I can eat, Dax Harwood. It's a dream come true.
I suggest taking the cocoa and the peanut butter, pouring them in a big bowl at the same time. Grab your almond milk or oat milk or whatever you like, fill it up and eat it, and it is just like chocolate peanut butter.
That is a great suggestion. And now you can do that. You can do that with Magic Spoon because it, like I said, it's got 0 grams of sugar. Go to magicspoon.com/FTR to grab a variety pack and try it today. And be sure to use our promo code FTR at checkout to save $5 off your order. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. You got nothing to lose. Remember, get your next delicious bowl of high-protein cereal at magicspoon.com/FTR and use the code FTR to save $5. And thank you, Magic Spoon, for sponsoring this episode. Whose idea was it to stick in all those tag team finishers in the match? You had the 3D, you had the Twist of Fate, the Swanton. That all came from the Young Bucks. From your side, you had the Heart Attack, you had the Powerplex, you had the really great-looking Steiner Bulldog from the top rope.
Yep.
Whose idea was it to make an homage to great tag teams?
So in my mind, I felt that the people had such lofty expectations of what this match should be, and I felt that this match should be 2 entities, 2 polar opposites, but two polar opposites that people think are the 2 greatest tag teams of a generation, right? And my idea was, the way I laid it out, was it should be a love letter to tag team wrestling. And I felt that their styles, obviously, we all feel, are completely different than our styles. So why not show who influenced these styles and why we wrestle the way that we wrestle better than doing it in this match? And that was my idea to stick those in there.
So this whole time, this whole show, really, I'm trying to get to the genesis of the very fabled Young Bucks FTR real life rivalry. Mm-hmm. But right now it still seems like everything's like Kumbaya fucking ya. Is that the way it was, or are you just kind of playing it down right now?
Well, Matt, I wouldn't play it down, dude. I'm not going to lie to our audience. I think you know that better. But I don't want to say it was Kumbaya. I don't want to say that it was all roses and we were, best friends or whatever, exchanging pleasantries. We were exchanging pleasantries, but we weren't. And I guess I was about to say we weren't exchanging gifts, but I'll go ahead and say it here. Cash and I felt that we owed the Young Bucks, something. They brought us into AEW, and this is our first opportunity working with them. And we wanted to show them that we were here to do business, and we wanted to make this the greatest rivalry of all time. That was our plan. So we had custom made Jordans for those guys, and we had them delivered to them. And it was one side was the Young Bucks Lakers colors and super kicks, and the other side was our Celtics colors, and it was super fists, and it was a gesture to them to let them know that although there's probably a little bit of professional competitiveness, we were still here to do business. We were here to do the right thing by the company, and we wanted to have the absolute best rivalry ever in tag team wrestling.
And you talked earlier in the show about how you had a lot of anxiety, the burden of expectations coming off of a match you weren't super happy with against Paige and Omega, but yet you guys are having this great match. You talked a couple episodes ago about that you had figured out in your head at least what the finish should be to this match a long time ago. And of course the finish is you got Matt Jackson's leg being worked over. Cash does a big move. Does a 450 out of character for the Revival or FTR, and that cost you the match. Did you want that to happen the way it did, losing the titles, having everything go? Did all that go according to Dax Harwood plan?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I had thought about this finish since 2016. This is, I felt that I knew we were going to leave WWE after the main roster run. So I had been thinking about this match since 2016, but I knew come 2018, I knew we weren't going to stay with WWE after our contracts were over. And so I'd been fantasizing about the match, and I wanted to make the greatest ever. And I, in my mind, like I've done probably to the detriment of our careers, I've always pitched for us to lose a lot. And when putting this match together back in 2016, 17, 18, whatever, in my head, in my mind, it was just, we were going to lose. We were the heels and we were going to lose. And my idea was we were going to hit them with some of our signature things. It wasn't going to work. And then it was like, fuck it. We've tried everything. And they're still beating us to the punch. We gotta get on their level, and that's how we're going to beat him. And so Cash tries this beautiful 450, which I've seen him hit before on the indies. Missed it. Boom. Right into us. Just one single super kick. Bam. Cover 1, 2, 3. So it was a beautiful, and so in my mind, all we had to do was come out the next week on TV and say, we had a lapse in judgment. That was our fault. We tried to play their game and we lost. That'll never happen again. When we come back, it's our game and we're going to play by our rules. And so that was my thinking going forward. Just never materialized that way. We never had another rematch for another year and a half. But that was my plan, my idea, and that's where I thought it was going. But things didn't work out that way.
Talk about the match a little bit more. What are some of your favorite things about the match itself?
I loved that everything was given its own moment. I loved that after a moment happened, we stopped and we settled down. That's what I think is missing sometimes in wrestling today, is a lot of guys don't stop because, like I told you earlier, we were talking about earlier, when there's a lull in crowd noise, the wrestlers panic. And they're like, oh my God, we're losing them. You're not losing them. They're paying attention. They're processing. You'll know when you lose them. And that's when they don't make noise at all through anything. But we stopped after every moment. Like there was a beautiful false finish where they hit us with the 3D, boom, followed by the twist of fate and the swanton, bam, 1, 2, kick out. People thought that was the finish. It was the 1, 2, 3. Oh no, they thought that was the finish because how we had built it up using our favorite wrestlers, our favorite tag teams finishers. And but then after they hit that, we stopped and we settled down. Right. And then we started retelling our story. We went back to the next layer of the story. And there was another time where a lot of action was happening where I think Cash might have stopped Matt. I can't remember exactly. But anyway, Cash was the illegal guy. Matt was the legal guy. And then Nick came in for the save, saved his brother, knocked Cash out of the ring, went to, did a deal where he went to the floor and backflip or something onto Cash. He comes up and springboards onto me where I catch him. I think this is the first time I hit the slingshot power bomb. Boom. And right from there, I had Matt give me the crucifix pin, 1, 2, almost a 3.
Fans bought that one too.
They thought that was it. And I was very proud of that moment. I loved the callback to the DIY finish. I don't think the fans necessarily thought that was the finish, but that's okay. I wanted them to think and understand we were reaching back into our back pocket, of our brain to our biggest rival previous to these guys and pulling out this finish from them to hopefully hit it because those guys had, beat us before with that finish. And that was my idea there for that finish. And I love the reaction off of that. I love the double sharpshooters where Cash and I were holding hands, but Matt couldn't hold on to it because of his ankle. I think more than anything, dude, more than any of the false finishes, the storytelling was amazing, I thought. And God, people are going to say, oh, God, he's putting himself over. But I'm saying this as a fan. I thought the storytelling was told so beautifully. But above everything, above all of it, I loved the selling from everybody, every single person in that match. I loved the selling. I loved how confident everybody is in their abilities, but they did not, no one, myself, Cash, or the Bucks, never forgot the most important part of the match is the selling. And my pride probably doesn't want to admit it, and my ego definitely doesn't want to admit it, but those boys are fucking good. They're fucking good, dude. I know you're you and some of the fans maybe think, oh, he's kissing their ass. If there's one person on the face of this earth that you can say will not kiss their ass, it's me, because I've said a lot of things before that would be the complete opposite of kissing their ass. I've made it known when I haven't been happy. I've made it known when I felt that some people were probably trying to take a shit on our legacy. I can't lie. These guys are in the ring incredible. There's a certain section of the fans that say that they don't know how to sell. And I dare you to go back and watch this match and say that, because those two are incredible. The way Matt sold through the whole match, that's, to me, it gets overused, and I hate even saying it, but that's art to me, how much he sold and how well he sold.
I mean, a Nick Jackson hot tag is something else. Like, it was
on fire.
Right? Hey, but the selling thing, it's a very double-edged sword. It's a quadruple-edged sword when you say this name. But Jim Cornette criticized a little bit of this match, saying that Matt Jackson wasn't selling the leg as much, the ankle. It seemed like sometimes it was fine, sometimes it's not. But you, on the other hand, are saying that his selling was great. Do you feel he sold the ankle well enough, or is that not even important at all?
I think he sold it incredible. I think he sold it perfectly. And I say that because I've talked to Austin before, Stone Cold Steve Austin. You may have heard of him. I've talked to him before about. He did okay for himself. I've talked to him before about the art of selling, and he said that, if you watch him and Brett from WrestleMania 13, there was a time when adrenaline hit and he was beating the shit out of Brett, and he didn't grab his knee and oversell it. Right. He said, if you oversell it, that's when people think to themselves, oh, he's selling. And you never want that. You never want people to say during the course of the match, during the meat of a match, you never want people to say he's a great seller. Maybe if you look back on it and say Ricky Morton's a great seller, that's fine. But in the heat of the moment, in the Midnight Express's heat, you don't want them to say, look at this, he's a great seller. You want them to sympathize and feel with him. So there were times where, if you watch WrestleMania 13, that's the example Austin used to me. There were times where he stopped, quote unquote, stopped selling the leg because he had a burst of adrenaline and he was going to town. He said, but then after that adrenaline, quote unquote, wore off, then he'd go back to selling. And that's what I thought Matt did perfectly. And again, it kind of breaks my ego's heart to say that, because I want to say that we're the greatest tag team, and I want to say that nobody even is on close to us, but those boys are fucking good, dude.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's like if you watch a movie, you don't want to talk about an actor and goes, he's really good at looking sad.
Right. You
want to say, I feel sad now, right?
Yeah.
That's one other question I had about the match in particular. There's such a conflict of styles. You have a tag rope and they don't, which I thought is really interesting, and also you have Rick Knox in there, who's not really enforcing any of the tag team rules as traditionally laid upon. And you talked last week about TakeOver. You're so fine-tuned about, hey, we're never double teaming the legal guy. And hey, we're thinking about this, we're thinking about that. A lot of that seems to go out the window for you.
You think so? Match. For this Young Bucks match? So I would implore
if you set a timer on how much minutes you were in there against the count against the Bucks, I'm sure the Bucks would be in there a lot longer.
Oh, well, okay. I'm saying in this match per se with not per se, that's the wrong way to use that word. In this match, I would dare you to go back and look and see if there are many times where an illegal wrestler hits a legal wrestler. I'm pretty sure we tiptoed around that rule because I told them that before this match. I said, hey, look, as we're putting it together, I said, we are very big sticklers on the rule. Saves are completely different, but more often than not in this match, I bet you wouldn't see an illegal wrestler strike a legal wrestler. Okay. I'm pretty confident in that. There may be a time or two, but it's not like four guys are in the ring doing their deal. You know what I'm saying? We have a chance. We give the two wrestlers their moment, and then we figure out a way to maneuver it around. Maybe there are three wrestlers in there, but then it goes back to two wrestlers. I'm not saying that it is as well structured as I usually have it or would like to have it as far as the rules go, but I think that we did a really good job as far as making sure the legalities were taken care of. As far as being in the ring for the length of time they did, I think that came down to a lot of the storytelling, and we took creative liberties with this match because we were putting it more towards the story than towards the story of the match than towards the action of the match. Right. So I think when the story starts to break down, maybe we do take a little bit of liberties with being in there for longer than the 10 count. But with what people expect from the Young Bucks and people expect from the Revival, I think it was a great mesh. I also think that there are people who expect something from the Revival and something from the Young Bucks, and they didn't like it at all because it was different than what they're used to from those team from their team, the team they like, right? Because of us working together. But that's what makes it beautiful is there is this compromise of styles where we don't lean towards a Revival or FTR or towards Young Bucks. It's right. It's in the middle, and it's the magic that we make. So I watched it back today, and I loved it, man. I thought it was really, really, really good.
It's like you said earlier about when you were planning the match, it wasn't quite as structured as the Bucks liked and not a little bit more structured than you would have liked. It sounds like compromise to me. Paige and Omega come out after the match. Omega comes out to celebrate with the Bucks, and Paige is in the hallway back there, that tunnel. We talked earlier about maybe the distraction of the Bucks becoming these heelish characters. Did you feel like it made a separate story that wasn't about you guys when you have this whole Hangman Omega thing looming over it, or did you think that was fine?
So at the time, thinking about it, in the moment of it, I didn't really think too much. I think over time I started to think more about it, and I started to get a little surprised, a little too bitter about it, a little bitter about it. Maybe not too bitter. I don't know. But I felt that the story leading up to it was, when I looked back on it, wrong or right, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying this is how anxiety works. This is how insecurity works. And a lot of these things I was fighting with, dude. Right. Again, I'm not a perfect human being. I'm trying my best to be better. But when I looked back on it and when I realized things weren't going to go the way that we had expected them to go, and maybe the way we were told, I looked back on the angle and I started thinking, okay, man, I don't know if this was purposely done. Maybe it wasn't, it probably wasn't. But I looked back and I was like, man, the Young Bucks and FTR was a backdrop leading up, was kind of a backdrop to Hangman Page and Young Bucks. Right. And then, after the match, where, hopefully we could have got a little bit of focus when we were crawling up the stage, and the commentators could have said, they they left their wheelhouse, or they left their comfort zone and they tried to play into the Young Bucks field and it didn't work. And now the Young Bucks have finally proven that they're the best tag team in the world. What will FTR feel? How will they think? We got, again, Omega and Page coming out, and we were an afterthought. And, thinking about it in 2023 now, if that's what the company wanted, that's okay. Thinking about it in 2020 and 2021, the beginning of 2021,
right,
I was bitter about it and I was upset about it because I felt that we were brought in, given a short title reign, and we were just kind of forgotten about. We were going to be forgotten about.
And it certainly wasn't presented like the two greatest tag teams in the world. Like the match wasn't really presented like that.
It wasn't built up. I agree with you. I agree with you, and I hope that doesn't get me in trouble, but I agree with you. It was not built up to that. It should have been. And I felt the story of the match told that, but the build-up probably, the build-up didn't. I'll say it. I'll whatever. It didn't. And I can probably confidently say that the four guys in the match didn't feel the build-up was done well either. But again, with 2023 eyes, I look back and say, look, if that's what the company wanted to do, that's okay. That's their prerogative. And that's what they wanted to do. But me with a completely different mindset, with my brain just fucking freaking out on me, dude.
Right.
I was taking everything as, I thought, yeah. And I thought the world was against me. And, I was kind of upset about it, thinking about it. Now I look back on it and I say, oh God, dude, it was a fucking Saturday. It was a Saturday. That's all. Because right now, when I finish up with you, I'm going to have one more tequila because I only had one with you here today. I'm going to have one more tequila. I'm going to walk upstairs, cook dinner with my wife, kiss her and hug her, and we're going to watch a show and enjoy our time together. Because that was just a Saturday of the week. Right. Wrestling is my love. My passion, my mistress. I'm enamored with wrestling. I put everything into wrestling, and it is so high on my priority list. But it doesn't even come close to the stratosphere of my family and my life, my everyday life. And I hope that fans can understand that, and I hope they don't think, oh, well, he doesn't put wrestling's not his number one. He doesn't care about wrestling. I care about it too much, dude. But I care about my family way more, and I care about my life way more now. So 2020, 2021, I was very mad. I was very upset. Probably would have fought in a second. Right now, today, as I'm talking to you, it was a fucking Saturday.
How much of that wouldn't have mattered if they would have followed up, right? Like, when you look at it, it's the two greatest tag teams in the world. They wrestle. And one wins, one has to win. And then there's a rematch or there's a build-up or they talk about it. But it's, like you said, it seemed like it was used as a backdrop. And when there's not really a follow-up to it, how much did that compound your kind of attitude at the time in relationship with the Bucks? Oh,
it was, yeah, a lot. I felt like we were a backdrop. I felt that the company was everything we had been promised. I think I told you this when we were talking about our debut. We come in, we were promised that the tag division was going to be built around these two teams. And I felt it wasn't being built around us. And I felt that we were lied to at the time. I felt that we were being lied to. And I think that my relationship with Tony got even more strained. I felt that the relationship with the Bucks completely deteriorated because of that. And look, dude, I'm here right now on this podcast telling you and the world that I take the blame for that. I take the blame for it because I shouldn't have taken wrestling so seriously. If Tony decided that he didn't think we were in that league or we should have been presented in a certain way, it's his company, dude. Same thing with Vince. I hold no ill will towards Vince, and I hold no ill will towards Tony, of course. Tony's one of my closest buds now, and I love him so much for what he's done for me and my family. But I should have looked back and said, okay, if Tony doesn't look at us in this light, what can I do to prove him wrong? And instead, I had the same thought, but also I had it with, I'm going to be combative and I'm going to fight for it. You know what I mean? And I shouldn't have, because it's his company. It would be like me, renovating this house, and he come over and he said, "Oh my God, your house is nice, but this living room shit, dude. I think you should do this to your living room." I was like, "Well, brother, it's my money, so, I think that whatever, if there are, I don't know. That's for you guys to decide, not me. If there were ill feelings between us and the Young Bucks, it was because we took it personally, and we shouldn't have taken it personally.
They took it personally too?
I think they took how we felt personally, yes. And they probably should have, if they felt that way, because we weren't probably being the best team players at that point in our lives. In my life, I can speak for me. I wasn't being a great team player because of all the shit I had going on in my brain. I was struggling, dude. And one day I think we should have a podcast, have one of our episodes devoted to what anxiety and depression does to you, and how sometimes what you see on the surface of some people, instead of judging them, you should ask questions. Not saying anybody judge me. I'm just saying that's how it should be. Instead of judging them, "Hey, is your day okay?" Again, going back to Eddie, when I was going through it bad, dude, he was one of the very first people in wrestling, besides Dan, because Dan knew, Cash knew. He's one of the first people to come up to me. It was in the gym, and he asked if I was okay. And you can ask him. I broke down and cried in the gym because everything was not okay with me. Not okay with me, dude. I remember, and this is probably getting too deep in the weeds, and I probably shouldn't tell this without getting permission from my wife to tell, because I haven't shared this story with too many people. I've never even told my mom or dad this, but I remember when it was so bad, anxiety and depression was so bad, that I walked down. I used to live in this cabin on top of a mountain. We were secluded from everybody. I remember walking down to our basement, to the bottom of the hill that the mountain sat on. I remember walking down there, and I started thinking, if I ended it right now, if I killed myself, not saying I ever wanted to, I'm just saying if I killed myself right now, all this worry would go away, and would anybody care? You know what I mean? That's how bad I was then. That's how bad it was. And for someone like Eddie just to ask me, "Hey, are you okay? How, are you doing all right? Or, you seem like this is bothering me." That, I could not thank him enough for helping me. I never ever thought I was suicidal. Let's put that out there right now. I just remember thinking,
but you weren't doing great.
I was not doing great. I remember going down there and thinking, if I ended it all right now, this pain in my brain and my thoughts would go away, and outside of my wife and daughter, would anybody really care? It was that bad, dude.
Well, I think that brings us to the end of what we're talking about here. I guess we'll try to cheer it up with a few Twitter questions. You put it out on Twitter using the hashtag FTR with Dax. And we had a couple questions. And it's just to kind of alleviate a lot of the misconceptions or conceptions. A lot has been confirmed, and you're just taking it on yourself, which is commendable. This is from Alexander Fortnoy. He asks, how much did politics backstage affect the match?
The actual structure of the match, and what happened in the match and the outcome of the match, zero. None at all. That's all I can say, is it didn't affect the match, the outcome of the match at all. There were no problems going into it. It was, I think, me thinking about the things that followed up is when things started going south for me. Is like, there was no follow-up. Why are we being presented this way, and why are we being treated this way, and getting into my own head? That was when things started going south for me.
Well, that's what Jonathan Hunter wants to know on Twitter. He says, why was there virtually no follow-up for FTR after the match? You talked about the what, and you talked about getting inside your own head about it, but what really was the why? We've had a couple years to think back on it. Why was there no follow-up?
Oh, you're asking the hard-hitting questions today, Matt. Jesus, dude. Either that or you want to get me in trouble. I don't know. I guess we had a lot of meetings with Tony in this time period, from the time that 2021 started until, right after I had my my anxiety attack, and I started to get on the good side of that. We had a lot of talks with Tony, and I remember telling him, like, Tony, I want you to present us as 1A and 1B with the Young Bucks. And he said, oh, I think you guys are 1A and 1B. And I think he did think that. I did think he think that in the world of professional wrestling, the best tag teams in the world, we were 1A and 1B. I didn't feel that we were being presented that way. But I think he did feel that way. I think he felt that we were the two greatest tag teams in the world. And I think he thought that was good enough. And it probably was good enough, and it should have been good enough. But to me, it just wasn't. So, that's my thoughts on the follow-up, I guess.
Do you think there were people in AEW getting in Tony's ear and talking you down and saying, oh, we tried them, it didn't work?
No, I don't. I don't think so. And I don't want to think that, and I hope that didn't happen. Sure. I think more than anything, it was probably my attitude, how I handled things, being so abrasive because I wanted us to work.
Can you give an example of you being abrasive that you think made things worse?
Yeah. Going into Tony's office, and instead of trying to find a middle ground or ask what we could do to make things better, to get a better position on the card, instead of doing that, I would go in there and say, Tony, you're shitting on us. You are shitting on us. You're making us look bad, and or you're not presenting us the way that we feel that we should be presented. And you're putting the Young Bucks here and us here, and it was just me being too abrasive. And if I owned a company, if I owned if I owned a painting company, and I would hire out there, contract out these painters, and this painter come to me and he was pissed off because I contracted him to paint the walls of just a single family house, 2 bedrooms, 2 bath. And then I contracted out the guy who's just as good as him to do a cathedral, to paint a cathedral or something. And he's like, why won't you give me that job? I'm just as good as he is, and you're giving me these jobs, and he's making this much money, and I'm only making this much money. You should be giving me these jobs. You should be doing this. Then I would probably be like, well, motherfucker, go find another person to pay you. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I don't fault Tony for thinking that way or not giving me what I want right now. I can't fault him for that because it's his company, and I wasn't approaching him the way I probably should have. And there's probably going to be times in the future that I work with him or Hunter or, Brett Lauderdale or whoever on the indies. And I say, you're putting us in the ring with these guys? You're putting us in the ring with these guys?
The three biggest names in wrestling.
Yeah. Hunter, Tony, and Brett Lauderdale. Absolutely. There we go, Brett. Big shout out to Brett.
Love Brett.
But, there's going to be times where I probably am going to be abrasive, and I'll have to take it, take it on the chin because that's my downfall. But I am working on it to be a better human being, and I am a complete work in progress. So,
well, this might not be what people wanted, but this might be even better because we all want to get into the who did what and why did you do this and who was bad to you and why are you angry and all this stuff. But instead, you're kind of in this self-actualized point of your life where you're like, it doesn't matter because I could have done better.
Yes.
And I think that's the lesson, right?
Well, yes. But also at this point, dude, I don't feel like anyone was doing me wrong. I felt that like we talked about, but this is a whole other podcast, is the follow-up, This is the lead up to the full gear. This is the episode with the lead up to the full gear. I felt like nobody was against us here. It was the follow-up that I had the problem with. And when we talk more in depth about that, I think we can, get into the weeds there. But the lead up and the actual full gear match, I had no problems with anybody. And like it, it was, no one was against me, I don't think. Looking back on it afterwards, when I looked at Hangman and Page coming out after a match, after we had been the backdrop to their story with the two of them, the Young Bucks, that's when I started having issues and that's when I started having doubts. But leading up, man, I was good to go.
We're about to wrap up. We'll do a really quick non-wrestling question of the week, and we'll do a real quick match of the week. But I have one more question. And you can answer it if you want, but I feel the need to, I know, I just feel people want these answers is, where is Dax Harwood and the Young Bucks now?
Dax Harwood is doing great at home. Mental health is great. I have and I have had for over a year now, completely new lease on life, new mental direction on what life is and what life means to me. As far as where we are with the Young Bucks, I don't think I want to delve into that right now, because there's a lot of things that need to be navigated, and I don't want to delve into that now. But also, I think that it is very rare in professional wrestling and nowadays where people can get lost in a story and people can get lost in heat and what's real and what's not real. If I tell you where we are right now, you're never going to get lost again. You know what I mean? You'll never try to figure it out. If I tell you. If I don't tell you and let you guess, then we keep the mystique there. Maybe one day we'll talk about it more detail. Right now, I got some business to take care of with them. It's 1-1, and I'll let the fans decide what's real and what's not real.
And we want to see that third match of FTR and the Young Bucks. I think you guys finally figured out what to do with each other, and hopefully we see that match sooner rather than later, although it does seem inevitable, and we look forward to that. Man, thanks for being so honest with everything. We appreciate that. We have a non-wrestling question of the week, and usually I pick one, and it's usually like, what's your favorite color? And then you're like, I have one, Matt, and it's like, it's like, this guy's really depressed and he needs help. So I'm going to go ahead and let you, do you have one in mind?
I do have it right here on my phone. So this is from @Darnell_rocks. Darnell Wilson, he says, in your opinion, what are the keys to a successful marriage as someone who is often traveling for work?
See, the question I was going to go with was Marvel or DC. So I think you're better.
Well, good, because I don't know. I couldn't tell you if Spider-Man or Superman's on Marvel or DC. I don't know any of that shit.
So I think your question's better. Could you repeat the question one more time? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. Darnell_rock says, in your opinion, what are the keys to a successful marriage as someone who is often traveling for work? The absolute key, there are two keys. One is trust and one is respect. You got to have equal amount of respect for each other. I think for so long, Christians have looked at the Bible, and the Bible was written by a man, and it says, succumb to your husband and all this stuff. And I'm probably going to get some people to come after me online, but that's not what I believe. I don't believe that. I believe God made us and he made women. And he made man, and he made men, and he made women, and made women. He made us all completely equal. He made us to be equal. It's up to us to treat everybody equally. You know what I mean? So why would he make me more important than he made my wife? You know? Why would he make me to be more respected than my wife? And that's just not how I feel. And that's not what I believe. She knows that I love her, and she knows I'm enamored with her, and she knows that I am absolutely in love with her. But more than anything, dude, before I became a wrestler, well, I was wrestling. I was in college, right? I was 18 hours in college. And to pay the bills, I was working 3 jobs. One of those jobs was a DJ for the biggest nightclub in Wilmington, North Carolina, which is a huge college town. And being the DJ, whether I'm ugly or not, gets you notarized from a lot of people, whether girls or guys. And so I got hit on a lot. So she had to come into our relationship with trust. And then I'm working in WWE and AEW with the most beautiful women on the planet. Again, she has to trust me, because if she doesn't, it's going to eat her alive. And I have to have that same trust in her. She has to respect me, and I have to have the exact same respect in her. So you can love people all day, and that's great, and you can be in love with them. But if you don't trust them and you don't believe them and you don't have respect for them, it's not going to work. And now this last month has been the most time that we've ever spent together in our 14 years. We just celebrated our 14 years together. This is the most time we've ever been together because, again, like I said, from 2009 until 2012 when we got married, working 3 jobs, going to school for 18 hours, and wrestling, dude. So we rarely saw each other. Then we got married. The very next day after we got married, we jumped in a car, drove to Florida, and I started working for WWE. Oh, wow. And so I was working all the time, doing live events, always on the road. And then NXT picked up, and I was, traveling around. So I was rarely home. Then, of course, the main roster, I was going 4 or 5 days a week. AEW comes around. And traveling has slowed down a bit, but, I'm still on the road. This last month has been the time that we have been able to spend together more than we ever have in 14 years. And I thought that she would be sick of me by now, but the love, respect, and admiration we have for each other and the trust that we have for each other has gone a long way. And that's why we are so close. She's my best friend. Nobody comes close to her for being my best friend.
Well, we definitely need to get her on the show soon, and look forward to talking to her a little bit. That's a great answer. Dax Harwood, do you have a match of the week?
Of course. Yes, I do. It's from Raw, August the 1st, 1994.
You're stuck in this new generation year still.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is what I grew up with. Yeah. August the 1st, 1994. Razor Ramon versus Shawn Michaels. An incredible sprint, dude, but it's not just, it's a sprint for, I want to say they go for like 18 minutes or something. It's a beautiful match that shows how a bigger babyface who's taller, who weighs more muscular, and is a street fighter gets over and is over as a babyface and sells perfectly to this heel who is 5'10", 5'11", maybe 6 foot, 220 pounds compared to 280 pounds, and he's a wrestler, and he outquicks him. And the way they tell this story, because usually you see these matches and the babyface out wrestles the heel, and that's how the heel gets embarrassed or gets frustrated. But this time they have to switch the psychology, and it's so beautiful. But then also it's action packed, great false finishes towards the end. That's a match that a lot of the wrestlers should watch to understand selling for a big man, a big baby face, selling for a smaller heel, and how they picked up the pace and when they slowed it down. Don't even worry about the false finishes. Everybody does false finishes nowadays. Just worry about that part of the match.
I'm always impressed by how hard they work when they work together. Like running the ropes. Nobody runs the ropes quicker than Scott Hall and Shawn Michaels in a match against each other.
Yeah. Well, Steve Austin too. They hit the ropes. They would throw themselves into the ropes. Also, back then the ropes were a little looser, so it was easier to spring off of. Now they fucking hurt when you hit them. So it's a little give and take now.
Well, I'll tell you, this was a great episode. I do want to say one thing, guys, writers and wrestlers or whoever. If you're going to get upset about the podcast, you have to listen to the podcast because there's a million damn things in this episode that can be taken out of context,
and it will be.
It will be, but on a personal level, Dax got a lot of shit for saying really nice things on the first episode about CM Punk. And Dax said a lot of really nice things about people on this episode, and it could easily be taken out of context. So people who want to comment on things like that, or people that think Dax is out to get you or whatever, listen to the show. Listen to it, and just don't take things out of context if possible.
Right. It's just for the enjoyment of the fans, and I have no malicious bone in my body as far as wrestling goes. I'm just here to tell the truth. So please listen to it. And dude, subscribe to our deal. Leave us a review, a 5-star review if you'd like. And I hope that you enjoyed this episode because we put a lot of thought and a lot of time into this one.
All right, by now, guys, I love talking about old wrestling. What you might not know is it's not my real passion. My real passion is helping people save money. My real passion is getting families out of apartments and into houses. My real passion is getting people's finances aligned so they can retire on time. I hated going to Walmart and seeing the greeter being 80 years old. She should not be working. She should be home. Why is she still working? Because she still has a mortgage. I want to help avoid that for you. The other thing I want to help you with, let's make sure your kids don't get saddled with student loans. If you've got a student loan, why did you get one? Maybe because your parents still had a mortgage. I'm not saying that to be funny. I'm being sincere. There's only so much money to go around. What I want to help you do is figure out where you are right now and where you want to be long term. And I do it at SaveWithConrad.com. I've been doing mortgages for more than 20 years. And during all that time, we've helped tens of thousands of families change their life. I mean, routinely, we're helping our podcast listeners save $500, $600, $700, $800 a month. But more importantly, get them out of debt faster and with cheaper monthly payments. But if you don't think it can happen for you, let me just tell you this. We are not the bank. We don't say no. We say not yet, but here's how. We're going to get you a game plan on how to improve your credit, how to save a little bit of cash, and how to get into that dream house. Maybe you're already in the house, but it would be nice if someday we could put a pool in the back, or one day we want to upgrade to hardwood floors, or remodel the kitchen, or get a badass master bathroom. I can help you do all of that with no money out of pocket right now at SaveWithConrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. You don't need money out of your pocket. And if we can't help you save some cash, we won't waste your time. Check it out, SaveWithConrad.com, NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. And hey, y'all, don't take my word for it. Check us out. We've got an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. And as if that's not enough, go look at our reviews. Read them and weep, haters. ConradReviews.com. You'll see more than 1,000 5-star reviews. Our average review is 4.72 stars. Find out how much money you can save. Take control of your life in 2023 by taking control of your finances. We're going to show you how to keep more of your own money. If you've got credit card debt, what are you paying on that? 14%? 28%? You know you can do better. With the mortgage, though, you may not know this, the interest you pay is tax deductible. And we can even show you how to skip your next 2 house payments. So if you can get a lower monthly payment, pay your debt off faster, get a greater tax deduction at the end of the year, and right now, right after the holidays, skip your next 2 payments, buddy, this is the biggest no-brainer in the history of the world. Find out how much money you can save right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com, or hey man, shoot me an email directly, Conrad@SaveWithConrad.com.